I'd like to call to order this meeting of the North Orange County Community College District Board of Trustees on March 11th, 2025 at 5:31-ish. Please stand and join me for the pledge of allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Alba, trustee roll call, please.
Trustee Beck.
Here.
Trustee Brown.
Here.
Trustee Denshi. Here. Trustee Ed Lopez.
Here.
Trustee Mark Lopez.
Present.
Trustee Rosales.
Here.
Student Trustee Johnson.
Here.
And Trustee Blount and Student Trustee Kim will not be with us this evening.
Thank you. Okay, agenda item 1C, consideration of non-personnel block vote items in sections 3 and 4. Do we have any that judges wish to call? Yes.
Yes, I'm going to pull 3A and 3H, please.
A is an apple and H is in horse. Alrighty. Any others in 3 or 4? Okay, we have a motion for approval of the remaining items.
So moved.
Moved by trustee Dunshee, second.
Second.
Second by trustee Penn. Student trustee, in favor?
Yes.
All right. Trustees, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Agenda item 1D, consideration of personnel block vote items in section 5. Is there any need to be pulled from that? Okay, so we have a motion for approval.
So moved.
Okay, trustee Rosales, second by?
Second.
Okay, trustee Lopez, and trustee Dunshee. You didn't fight that. Okay. Student trustee approved. Okay. Trustees in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item 1E, Chancellor's Report. Dr. Beard.
Good evening. Thank you, Board President Brown. Good evening, faculty, staff, students, and community members. It's always a pleasure to really share the great work that's being done across our district to support student success, foster innovation, and build a strong, inclusive community. Last week, on March 6th and 7th, I want to report that the Amend Charter group attended the annual summit with a strong delegation of 12 students. And while some had to miss sessions due to exams and work obligations, those who attended took full advantage of the many breakout sessions and keynote presentations that were offered at the event. And as a direct outcome of these students' experiences, they will be organizing a speakers panel during Black Student Success Week, which starts on April 22nd from 3:30 to 5 p.m. in the Legacy Center at Cypress College in the Humanities Building, first floor. The panel provides an opportunity for students to share best practices, key insights, and meaningful moments from the conference. Additionally, our Fullerton and Cypress Amend Charters held their first joint fellowship meeting, marking an important milestone in the NOCCCD collaboration and student leadership. I'm also thrilled to highlight Entrepreneurship Week, which is happening now, March 10th through the 14th at Fullerton College. The week-long hands-on event is designed to give students the tools they need to launch their own businesses. And this year, they're excited to welcome the entrepreneur in residence, David Ochi, who's a seasoned startup strategist that's spent 30 years mentoring and launching businesses across the globe. There will be highlights such as daily business building workshops, industry-specific entrepreneur talks, meet the student entrepreneurs, and morning network sessions throughout the week. And I'm proud to report that students across Fullerton, Cypress, and NOCCCD are encouraged to participate in this transformative event. It's not just an initiative about launching startups, it's about fostering an entrepreneurial mindset that empowers students and faculty and staff to create their own opportunities. I also want to report to the board that we did receive a legal opinion on the Men of Color Action Network item that had been pulled for review at last board's meeting. The legal opinion provides a summary. It's been prepared for the board's review. It ensures that we remain compliant and aligned with best governance practices. I want to take a moment to express my deep appreciation to Trustee Evangelina Rosales for hosting Fullerton College's Dining for Dollars event at her home. It was a fantastic evening in support of our students, and I was honored to attend. So I want to thank you, Trustee Rosales, for opening your home and creating such a meaningful experience for everyone who came out for this event, this fantastic event. I also want to thank the members of the Foundation Board of Fullerton College and the community members. Your generosity and commitment to our students are truly inspiring. And I also want to acknowledge that the Academic Senate President, Fullerton College Bridget Comnick, as well as President Olivo, were in attendance, along with the Mayor of La Habra, Rose Espinosa, as well as other low-key celebrities like Alma and Fred. Finally, on behalf of the district, I want to share that Trustee Blount is recovering well at a skilled nursing facility in Anaheim, and he hopes to go home sometime this week. His progress has been positive, and he anticipates rejoining board meetings virtually by mid to late April. So we continue to wish him a smooth and speedy recovery. And with that, I'm proud of the work being done across NOCCCD and grateful for the dedication of our faculty, staff, and trustees in supporting these efforts. And with that, I'll conclude my report.
Very good, thank you. Agenda item 1F, which is actually 2A, but Alva, you really quite get it right. It's so hard to do with help, you know? Okay. 1F, approval of minutes of the regular meeting in February 25th, 2025. Do we have any corrections, changes? Do we have a motion for approval?
I had a couple corrections.
Okay, you can jump in faster.
Sorry.
Okay.
And I did send these ahead to Alva. So it's just in a couple places when the names were listed as voting members, my name was left off, but I was there last time. So on page 131, under the minutes, when it was approved, it should say, you should just add motion carried with Trustee Dunshee. Okay, and then the two Lopez's and Rosales, so my name should just go. And the same correction is on page, there's two other places. On page 142, under item 5A, it says that it was moved and seconded, but then when it lists the motion carried with, my name was left off. And then again, at the bottom of that page, subsequent to trustees agreeing to include the second option, again, my name was left off. And then on page 143, just above where it says item 5D, where again, this the motion carried, my name was left off. So there were just a couple of places where my name was left off. So minor correction.
The agenda that's on the website was corrected and it has notations that the pages were revised on the published agenda, so it's been taken care of on that end.
Okay, so with those minor corrections, I will move approval.
I'll second.
Seconded by Trustee Rosales. Student trustee approval? Approved. Okay, trustees in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Abstentions? Approves unanimously. All right. Is there a need for a closed session at this point? Okay. Okay. Moving ahead, item 3A. ratifying purchase orders and checks. This was pulled by trustee Mark Lopez. Would you like to make a motion for approval?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll make the motion.
Moved, and this is second by? Second. Okay, by Lopez. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to pull this item because this is good news. I want to give kudos to Dr. Lebo, the Fullerton College staff. No false fire alarms. I don't know if that was happenstance or if it was due to all of our efforts we've been doing. Either way, I'll take it. So I just wanted to provide kudos to the staff for that and acknowledge some positive things that are not happening at our campus area. So with that, I support the item.
Any other discussion on this?
Well, hopefully it was just the item wasn't renamed to something else, but, yeah.
Okay, then we'll move to the vote. Student trustee Johnson?
Yes.
Yes, okay, trustees in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Abstentions? None. Motion passes unanimously. Excellent. Next one is item 3H, authorization to approve out-of-country travel for Alexander Brown to Sri Lanka and Thailand. Again, this is pulled by trustee Mark Lopez. Do you wish to
Make a motion to
Okay.
move.
Motion for approval, we have a second by?
Have a discussion.
I'll second it.
Trustee Beck will second, and it's up to you.
Thank you. I'm also supportive of the item. I did have just a clarification with staff if, or trustees, whoever has the answer on this, because we are sending a staff member internationally, and we've had a couple of times recently. Just wanted to get an update once a staff member returns, just to update the board on what insights they gleaned, what experience they had there in terms of bringing F1 visa students to our campuses here at NOCCCD. I'm not asking for a full presentation to the board, just based on time and resources, but if there is at least a memo or just at least a white paper maybe or something on it that explains what they accomplished while they were there at these two countries.
Okay, that sounds like a good idea. Find out, what contacts were made, yes, what came out of it. Okay, that makes sense. Any other discussion? Yes.
Just want to ask, I think the same, I don't remember if it was the exact same two countries, but it was the same region that was traveled to last year for the same purpose, I believe. And so I would like to also have that update and understand, I don't remember if it's the same countries, I don't think so. Probably a little bit different. Is it different? But yeah, I'd love to see what the progress was from the last year that was traveled to these Asian countries. And then have an update from this one as well, just so we can understand, what the break even is and that sort of thing. Thank you.
Any other discussion or questions? Okay. We have a motion and a second. That's good. Trustee Johnson?
Yes.
Okay. Trustees in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Abstentions? None. Motion passes unanimously. Next one is 3N, authorization for institutional membership for the Men of Color Action Network. Annual fee not to exceed $3,000. This had been on the last agenda item and was postponed until this, pending some questions being answered and also getting a legal opinion that Wheeland mentioned. Do we have a motion for approval?
So moved. Second.
Okay, moved by trustee Rosales, seconded by trustee Benji. Do we have any discussion or questions? Yes. Trustee Lopez.
I'd just like to add a friendly amendment to the motion to include the stipulations that have been recommended by legal counsel. Namely that the programs must have inclusive access, meaning that all MOCAN activities and benefits are open to everyone who goes to college regardless of race or gender. And second, non-discriminatory messaging is required, ensuring that the program's materials explicitly state that there are no restrictions on participation based on any protected characteristics. So that's the language of the background material, and it's from the legal counsel's opinion. And since we did request this opinion, I think we should follow it and include those recommendations.
Trustee Benji.
Yeah, I'll just add, we have a lot of programs like this throughout our community colleges, And so basically what's the legal opinion was is there cannot be any discrimination for these types of programs. And the problem is, when you have a name like Men of Color Action Network, then people that are not men of color may not think that they can join or not try to, not be like, feel like it's advertised for them or created for them. But legally, they cannot be discriminated against. So I support this, but I do think that we do need to audit like all of our programs just to understand, if we are following the law and making sure people feel welcome and they can join from regardless of their background. So that's all I'll stipulate. I appreciate Trustee Lopez for including that language because I think it's very important to understand the legal obligations we have as a district to comply with the law.
Yes. And Trustee Rosales, you.
I would say, instead of an audit, just maybe an update of like what I know when I was invited, it was, all students from different backgrounds. So I think that would be nice to have that in update as like, who's enrolling and who's, how it's being advertised and having that basic learning about the culture was really nice to be able to see how our, as classmates, we were able to collaborate, having that focus. So maybe an update would be nice versus like a full audit, because I think that would take more work, but maybe an update would be nice. So that would be my recommendation.
Trustee Dungy.
Yes, according to the agenda item on 3 and 2 in the second paragraph, it lists those two requirements. It says first, inclusive access must be ensured, and second, non-discriminatory messaging is required. And then the last sentence says the legal requirement outlined above has been in place since the program's inception and has been confirmed by the Fulton College leadership. So I don't think you need an addendum because the way I read this is already there. So
The recommendation doesn't include any of that. It just says authorization is requested for an institutional membership. So the friendly amendment would just incorporate the other language that you just mentioned, which is from the legal opinion.
well, where we at go?
It would just be an amendment to the motion that we approve it, subject to the stipulations of the legal opinion, namely A, inclusive access must be ensured, and B, non-discriminatory messaging.
I don't have a problem with that, but the way I'm reading that, it's already done. So why do we need to change it?
Because it's not in the motion. Again, the recommendation is simply to approve it. But legal counsel was saying it should be approved only with these conditions. So I think we just need to include the conditions.
It's fine, but. I would also like to add, I went on to their website to learn a little bit more about this organization. And, several of our neighborhood schools are members already. The patrons include Santa Monica, Mount Sac, Compton, Pasadena, El Camino. And the organization also offers multiple scholarships. So, if even, I think the benefits are clear, and I'm very happy to support this.
Sorry, I'd like to mention as well, one of the reasons I'd like an update to understand like how students are selected for like the Puente program and stuff like that. I've volunteered for like the Legacy program at Cypress College, and I've been a mentor for them, and I know in a lot of those classes, sometimes I think the Puente program filled up, and then some of the students were able to get into Legacy. So I think it would be just interesting to understand how that works and to make sure that, all these programs are welcoming to all students. Thank you.
Angela, I believe you made the motion. Are you okay with the change that Trustee Lopez has suggested, including other languages as part of the approval recommendation?
I'm okay just to make sure that we have a little added information, but I do agree with Barbara, it's already in there, but I think it's not bad intention to give us some information. Absolutely.
Okay. Does anybody else have a problem with including the change that Trustee Lopez suggested? It doesn't look like it. Okay.
And if I can make another comment, I just want to make sure we don't get in the weeds of a lot of these programs, so I want to be cautious about that. So I want to make that very clear that that's not what I'm asking in regards to getting an update, but I just want to make that very clear that I don't support get into the weeds of any of the programs. I think faculty and staff and everybody that's on the floor are experts in their area, and we just want to be mindful of that. I think just a friendly update would be suffice for me, and I just want to make that very clear.
Yes, bro.
I think as a point of order, you need to ask whoever seconded as well. So
Wasn't it you?
yes,
That's
so
fine.
it's okay, but I don't think it's necessary.
Okay, yeah. I thought you would.
Okay, all right.
That's fine. Yes. Trustee.
One, I just want to thank the board for considering this item again and bringing it back. I also want to thank the leadership at the college for providing the information to verify that in fact, we have been compliant, and I appreciate Trustee Dunshee mentioned since the program's inception for the record, and also again, Fullerton College leadership confirming this. And I want to also mention that as far as future programs go, we talked about this at the last board meeting, that we'll most likely hold up these two standards, these two legal standards, and look at all the programs across the board to make sure that they at least meet these two pieces. I don't know if it's not getting into the weeds, but at least making sure that we're compliant. My hunch is that we are, but I want to make sure that it's covered, and I think that's something that the board is also interested in. So I just wanted to make that comment that we'll be doing a review of our programs.
It's unfortunate that the name is men of color, which does sound exclusionary. It's kind of like, women voters, which is not just for women. But obviously, we can't change the name, and it is what it is. But yeah, it's important that we fulfill the legal requirements for non-discrimination and inclusivity. Yes.
I just wanted to make one further point regarding the legal counsel's recommendation. This really isn't a result of the recent letter from the Education Department. These recommendations follow the requirements of the Department of Education in the Biden administration. And cited in the footnotes of the opinion were case resolution agreements where the Biden administration had gone after some community colleges and universities for similar programs. And this is what they required in the case resolution, namely that either the programs be abolished, that the names be changed, or that they meet these conditions. So I just want to be clear about that. This is really following the Biden administration's interpretation of civil rights law, not so much the recent dear colleague letter.
Okay. Any other discussion? Right. Ali, you have the revised. Okay. Then we will vote on this. Student trustee? Yes. Okay. All trustees in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Abstentions? None. Motion passes unanimously. All right. Moving down to 6A. Proposed revised board policies, chapter 2. We'll go through these one by one. This is for information at this point, not for adoption, but this is our chance to make comments, and will come back to us for adoption presumably in the next meeting. Is that right, Alan? Okay. Okay, first, proposed BB 2015 on student members. Let me just throw out a couple things on this. Some of these changes are a result of the change in the education code as a result of the legislature passing AB 1541, which expands and clarifies the rules and rights of student trustees. So in section 1.0, where the text is deleted, it says advisory votes may not be cast on motions related to personnel and labor relations. The Ed Code now requires that student trustees can vote on any action item that's on the agenda. And a similar change is in 4.1. Student members may make or second open session motions, except motions underlying personnel and labor relations. That was apparently being suggested to be consistent with the first one, but that one actually we can choose to accept or not. So we may want to have discussion on that. The other thing I just wanted to mention is in section 4, it's, I think, rewording. Right now it says, student trustees shall have the right to attend each and all meetings of the Board of Trustees, period. Student members may not attend closed session. That could be read as those two sentences being in conflict with each other. The way that it's written, they're independent statements that say different things. I know what is intended there, and that can easily be avoided by combining them into one sentence that says, student members shall have the right to attend each and all meetings of the Board of Trustees, comma, except student members may not attend closed session. So I would suggest that that be made to clarify what the actual language is there and avoid any ambiguity. You may have a problem with that change. It doesn't look like it. Okay, any discussion from other members on this, whether it be about 4.1 or anything else in EP 2015?
Can we get some input from our student trustee?
I'm in favor of it.
Do you have any other suggested changes, or do you feel that this is captured?
I think it's captured well.
Do you have any feeling about 4.1 about allowing or not allowing student trustees to make motions on personnel and labor relations? Because that's an optional. It hasn't been allowed before. It can be allowed, it doesn't have to be allowed. So do you have any feeling about whether that would be important for you, or you'd rather have it or not have it? Or?
I think I'd rather have it as a student trustee.
Okay.
I think it's important for student voices to be heard in all matters, but specifically that section, yes, I would say it does matter.
Okay. Right.
It is important for me at least.
And the other language changes that are here are just really just minor language changes. Okay, anything else on 2015? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, so when it says full member, what does that mean again? What are you saying that means?
Where?
It says shall be recognized as full members of the Board of Trustees at meetings. What is the, that's not like a change, I guess, but, because it's still advisory votes, right?
Right.
Yeah. So that's what I guess I'm a little confused about. Like, when if I say full, to me it almost means like it's like counts as the same vote as a trustee and they're still advisory votes. So.
It doesn't, I think that's probably the language in the ed code. My understanding is that it's distinguishing from, say, people on the resource table who are not seated with the Board of Trustees, do not participate in the discussion on the same level. So they're full members in that sense of being able to participate within limitations of being a student trustee and advisory votes.
Thank you. And that wasn't something that was changed on this version. It was just something that is in the middle of the changes, and I was just wondering like what exactly that, if that as long that's the same. So thank you.
Yeah, that sounds like language that I've seen before.
Yeah, it's been there.
Okay. Anything else on 2015? Okay. Yes.
It's a question not so much on the VP, I think it was fine, but section 3.0, I just happened to notice, it says, if a student member the seat of a student member becomes vacant, then the board can authorize officers of the relevant student body association to appoint an eligible individual. So we have a vacancy. Is this something we're going to be doing? Do we have to have an agenda item to authorize the appointment by the student association?
Can I ask a follow-up question in tangent to that? When is the next student trustee would be appointed in June 1, right? So, but the elections aren't they going on now?
Soon.
Soon.
We're scheduled now.
Right for us.
Okay.
Okay, so, I would, if the elections are going on soon and we have a result, could that person be seated early?
Well, possibly, looking at a special election for the policy for the students and trying to, if possible, align for the additional for the following year. But they're going through the process now to identify the timing of everything. But in theory, yes.
Oh, so they don't even have the timeline for the elections laid out yet?
They're working that out right now.
Okay.
I think that the language that I read, it's saying the student body organizations can always elect a replacement, but this would allow the trustees to make an appointment. we didn't want to wait for that, or where it just has that possibility, it doesn't require it, it can still go through whatever the normal process is on campus. Right.
Yeah, when the Board of Trustees up here has a vacancy, we can either appoint a replacement or schedule, interviews and applications for an appointment, or we can go to a special election or wait till the next, official election. So I think in this case, ideally for a student trustee absence, because it can happen at any time throughout the year, I think it would be good to default back to the student board or the student body, student association, and I think they should be able to determine can we make it to the next election or do a special election, or do we want to appoint somebody? So that they recommend to us to appoint. So I think it should be the same kind of decisions that we get to make for our own trustees. I think the student association should make those decisions. So I would like to see it open for them to have the option to do it in their general election, special election, or to appoint a replacement temporarily, if that's okay.
I agree, I was thinking the same, but I was also going to ask, and that means that it would have to be applied for the following May term to run another election if we were appointing them ahead of time, is that correct? So if they're just finishing out a term, they then would they then have to, run an election again for that following term?
This is just the appointment would be to fill out the term.
Just to fill out the term, got it.
So that would take place of whatever the normal process would be for the next one.
Thank you.
That's perfect.
So we just need more information from the student at this point. What do you need to say? Is that
Okay, so currently they're going through the process per the policy to do the election piece. And it's, so they're just following what's in place.
Okay,
So they'd be open to whatever the policy is, they'll follow.
okay. So maybe if we can just get some feedback
Do we know,
when they have some more knowledge.
do we know, are the current policies and procedures on the campus, do they allow the associate students to either have an election or appoint someone themselves? Or do they have to only fill a position by election?
My understanding is the election only, the appointment has been discussed and it's something they inquired about, but currently the understanding is they have to do a special election to fill the position per the policy. But they have discussed the ability to appoint, it doesn't appear to be an option at this time.
Okay, so this language would allow them to come to us and say, we would like you to appoint somebody rather than us, us on the campus having an election. They could come to us and say that they would like us to make an appointment.
So what this section is saying is that the board may authorize the officers of the Student Body Association to appoint. It's not saying that we would.
Okay, right.
So I think there are two options. This doesn't say anything about special elections. So I think the options that we have are either to wait until the next election or authorize the Student Association to make an appointment. And if we do the latter, then I think we have to have an agenda item where we authorize them to make the appointment. That was my question.
Well, can't the student association have a special election themselves? Do they have to wait until the next regular election they would have?
Well, the policy doesn't say anything about special elections. I don't think the statute does either.
Well, that would be-
There's an AP that outlines the process.
It would be about what the policy is on the campus for what they can do to get their students trustee.
Well, it's also whatever the ed code says. So I think the two options are an election or an appointment. I don't think there's a provision for special election, but we can check on that.
There is a provision for special election in AP 2105, which is election of student members. It says the board has the authority to direct associated students to appoint somebody, or the alternative is to call a special election within 30 days of the notice of the vacancy. And I think that's what they're working towards. To Trustee Rosal's earlier point about having to have the person who's opting to run for the following term, I think the idea is if they don't do a special election and they try to do the regular election at the same time to fall within that time frame, there would be two options on the ballot: fill the remainder of the term and then run for the position for the following year.
3.0, can we just change the word appoint to elect or appoint? And that basically just leaves it up to whatever their bylaws and laws are that they have to follow. We could just change it to elect or appoint. That gives them the ability to do either one that they're able to do.
But it sounds like they already have the ability to elect.
Well, I just want to make sure that that's still there. We're not just telling them the word appoint, but not the option to elect. So I think elect or appoint would be ideal on that.
I would just like to point out that my understanding the gentleman in the audience is a student representative from Cypress College Associated Students, and is willing to kind of shed some light on the situation if the board is interested in hearing from the students directly.
I'm glad I hear from you. Could you come over to the microphone?
Hello, my name is Moises Sandoval. I'm the Executive Vice President of the Association of Students at Cypress. And we're actually currently going through the election process right now. So our voting actually opens tomorrow and it ends on Thursday. So we will have a new trustee elected by the end of the 30 days.
Perfect. Always good to get some expert information. And it sounds, although like the existing AP already deals with either an appointment or a special election.
Right, not the AP for student members, the corresponding not the corresponding, it's noted in BC below, election of student members 2105, that one outlines the process for vacancy.
So it sounds like we're taking care of it. Okay.
So
Was there, just so I'm on the same page, I think trustee Bent.
yeah, I would still like 3.0 to be changed from appoint to elect or appoint. And if we're only going to do one, I prefer the word elect because I think electing is better than appointing as a student. I think students can vote for their member, but I would change it just to elect or appoint.
Anyone have a problem with that?
I'm okay with that.
Okay. It just sounds to me like maybe that's redundant, but it doesn't hurt anything to have it. Okay, anything else on this one? Alrighty. Going to the next one, BP 2200 for duties and responsibilities. The only substantial change in this is the addition of 2.10 and or 2.11. 2.10 says, assure the Board of Trustees operates in an open, accessible, welcoming spirit and maintains an inclusive and anti-racist culture. 2.11 is establish policies that ensure the district operates in an anti-racist manner. Were these because of suggestions from boards, from DCC, from
The language in 210 and 211 are recommended, optional recommended language by the league as part of the language that they offered years ago regarding DEIA. That's the language in blue. The language in red was what DCC recommended when they had their meeting on the policy.
Okay. The DCC put in the maintains inclusive, and that was the only thing that wasn't.
Correct, just the addition of inclusive and.
So we could include either, both, or neither of these. Right, that's your question.
No, I just had a question about highlighting sheets and answer it. So I wanted to know who did the blue, who did the red. So thank you.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Okay. I will say it seems to me like they're kind of unnecessary to have 210 and 211, and 210 kind of strikes me as a, ooh, I'm not really sure what that all means. Welcoming spirit and inclusive culture, whereas 211 established policies that ensure the board operates in an anti-racist manner seems more concrete to me. So I guess I would like to not do 210, and I'm okay with 211 if you think it should be there, or maybe not even do 211. So I would welcome any comments, Barbara.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to note that the NOCCCD board has done extensive work to try to assure that boards act in a manner that is reflective of certain principles, and among those are to be inclusive, to be diverse, to be anti-racist or accessible. The A is used kind of interchangeably. And one of the things that they did, and this was not just a recommendation from the NOCCCD board, but it was also a recommendation from ACCT, was that boards should look at their policies very carefully and to write them in a language that would encourage all trustees to do such a thing. So I am very supportive of both the changes in 2.10 and 2.11. And I understand that, maybe all of these things are a little hard to, how would you enforce it, or what does that look like, and things like that. But I think it is important that our board recognize that this is a duty we should all uphold. So I would highly encourage everyone to support this. So that's kind of the answer. That's my take on 210 and 211. I'm happy to hear from other trustees what they think. I did pull up the new accreditation standards. And Standard 4 talks about governance and decision making. And I think it's important to know that there are a couple other duties that board members have according to accreditation standards. Now, I think, for example, it talks about under 2.2, hire a chancellor and then delegate to the chancellor the authority. But we also are required by accreditation standards to evaluate the chancellor. Now, there is another board policy that talks specifically about evaluation of the chancellor. But I don't know if we want to add that specifically as a board duty and responsibility, because it's very clearly one of our duties and responsibilities. There's also a requirement from accreditation that we have board policies, procedures related to board ethics and conflicts of interest. Now again, we have other board policies that deal with ethics and conflicts of interest, but I don't know if we want to list under our board duties and responsibilities that we need to follow our ethics and policy and our conflict of interest. So those are just a couple other things that I didn't know if we want to put them all on one page or if we're okay having them in other board policies. But I found it very helpful to read this policy over again and kind of, remind ourselves of what we are supposed to be doing, and that make sure it aligns not only with accreditation standards as well as ed code, but then also kind of remember what is our focus of what we're supposed to do. So those are my comments.
Right. Yes, since Dr. Doshi is our state representative on the CCCT board, I just wanted to know, since you all looked at this very carefully, if there was any examples of racism from trustees across the state, because I'd like to see those. I mean, I think that'd be something that'd be very interesting to be able to learn from.
Do you want me to answer that?
Yeah.
So they were not looking at examples, but they were looking at, what they're saying. These are policies and these are duties and responsibilities. That's the title of this. And that if we believe that that's an important duty and responsibility, then we ought to put it in writing. I don't think they looked at any board. That's not what their role is. And again, it wasn't just, I was not on the group that did the policy recommendations. I just heard the feedback from that group. But it was also on a worksheet from ACCT. So both trustee organizations, both the state and the federal one, believe that these are important to have language that incorporates this. So in answer to your question, I don't know.
Okay, thank you very much. I just wanted to see if we're fighting ghosts or if there's something that really exists out there. So that's fine. I would be fine with keeping 2.10 and 2.11, or I can eliminate 2.10 if you think that's appropriate as well. Thank you.
All right, well, we've got several possibilities for changes here. Let's see if we can get consensus. First one on 2.2, change hire, chancellor, and delegate to hire, delegate, and evaluate chancellor. We have consensus on including that change. Anybody opposed to including it? Okay, I don't see any opposition, so I guess we'll put that one in there. Following the code of ethics, that would be a new 2 point something. thoughts pro or con against including that? I don't think there's anything wrong with it since we require the code of ethics, but, okay, people okay with that one?
Yes.
Okay, we can have that at the appropriate place in section 2.
Is somebody going to provide language?
Including 2.10, board operating an open, accessible, welcoming spirit, maintaining inclusive and anti-racist culture. People want to include that one. I don't have a problem with including it.
I'm okay with including that.
Yeah.
Can I just make a suggestion?
Oh, sure.
And I didn't realize this, sorry, Danielle will yell at me. And I didn't realize this until after the fact. Just in keeping with the structure of this section, I would suggest you start with operates in an open, or operate in an open, accessible manner. You already referred to the board in 2.0,
Yes.
and the structure of the sentences.
Start with a verb. Yep.
Right.
Okay, yes, I think that's a good grammatical. Okay, so we're okay with keeping 2.10 with that grammatical change, okay? How about 2.11? Establish policies that ensure the district operates in an anti-racist manner. Anybody not want to have that? Okay, I think we have our marching orders on that. Next one, BB 2210, the board of officers. These were all just changes where it said board to change it to board of trustees. That's all that's there. I'm assuming nobody has a problem with that. Okay,
Sorry, that was 2210.
that was 2210. Does anybody else have that?
Well, just a couple of minor things.
Okay.
Or just one minor thing. In 1.1.5, and 0.6, or 0.7, 0.8, board should be capitalized. We've been changing those all to board of trustees, but I think it's fine just to have board capitalized by itself.
Okay.
1.1.5, and then what were the others?
0.6, 0.7, 0.8.
So you guys board is not capitalized. Okay.
And then at the very end, where it says see board policy 2305, etc., board policy 2740 should be board professional development instead of board education. That's all I have.
All right. Anything else on that one? No. Okay, BP 2220, committees of the board. Same thing, changing board to board of trustees, no other changes.
Oh, Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I do have a couple of comments on this one. So it kind of appears that when this was written, we didn't have any standing committees, or we didn't recognize that we did. But we do have two standing committees, one on investments and one on audits. And so CCLC number 1 recommends in the template that boards not have standing committees. We don't have to, of course, go along with that. But it also suggests that if a board does have standing committees, that they list them in this policy. So that's one thing to consider. Do we want to list them here? And also in 3.0, it says that the committees that are only advisory have no authority or power to act. Well, that would be true of the standing committees too. So I would just delete that are only advisory and just say committees have no authority or power to act on behalf of the board of trustees.
And I assume there's no situation in which the board could appoint a committee and allow them to take action separate from the entire board.
I don't know about that, but that's certainly not envisioned in this policy. If we were going to do that, we'd have to change the policy to provide for that too. But so far, as this is written, we're only talking about advisory committees, or as we normally call them, ad hoc committees, and standing committees. And neither of those has the power to act on behalf of the board.
Of course, right now, standing committees aren't mentioned, so we're talking about the advisory committees. So I guess I'm just asking, would it be possible, for the board to to appoint a committee, which I guess it would not be an advisory one because, say, it's not less than a quorum, so that it would be a subcommittee of the board, which is not a standing committee, but could be given the power to act independent of the entire board act. What your suggestion is that would not be allowed. Just questioning, do you want to allow that as a possibility, or do you want to say that it's not possible?
Well, I wouldn't get into that myself. I don't think that is discussed in this education code section. It might be provided for elsewhere. But under this code section and under this policy, we're just talking about committees that do not have the power to act on behalf of the board. And the only reason that this is stipulated in terms of advisory committees do not have the authority apparently is because we only had advisory committees at the time this was written. I'm guessing. But we do have standing committees now, investment and audits. They do not have the authority to act on behalf of the board either. That's just what that's the thing that has to be clarified.
I mean, I personally can't think of a reason why we would want to delegate the ability to act to a subgroup as opposed to the entire board.
Right, I agree.
So it's kind of the, acting as a devil's advocate. Do you really want to, for sure, prohibit that? It sounds like that it's not something you have a problem prohibiting by saying that it can't be done. Or that, that no committee is going to be able to operate independently.
Yeah, I'm not even sure that's lawful. But again, under this code section and under this policy, I don't think that is envisioned. So I don't think it's changing anything just to delete that are only advisory, because certainly the existing standing committees don't have that authority.
Ryan and Barbara.
We'll go Barbara then Ryan.
Thanks. So we have these two committees, and we call them standing committees, but once a year we appoint people to them. Why are they considered standing committees versus ad hoc committees? And here's the catch. Because my understanding is if they're a standing committee, then they operate under the Brown Act, and you have to post the meeting and open them up. And I don't know. I serve on the audit committee, and I don't know if that's being done or not. I haven't paid attention to it.
It is.
It is.
We do it now. We did used to, but we started doing it. So yeah, a standing committee is a committee that has an ongoing subject matter jurisdiction. Whereas an advisory committee or ad hoc committee, as we normally call them, just have a specific task, they do it, they report, and then they're discharged. So the audit committee and the investment committee are both standing, they have an ongoing subject matter jurisdiction. And so a couple of years ago, we did start complying with the Brown Act. Those meetings are noticed now. They are open to the public now. Committee members probably haven't noticed that, but the meetings are noticed now. So that's question number one. Do we want to keep them? If so, do we want to list them? And either way, we want to revise section 3 just to delete that language about that are only advisory.
As I read 1.1, the standing committees would be not required to comply with the Brown Act, but we do because there would be a committee composed solely of less than a quorum of the members and is advisory. So whether it's standard or ad hoc, that would be one of the board committees that is not required to comply with the Brown Act, even though.
No, they are required because they have an ongoing subject matter jurisdiction. So this says, unless they are a standing committee. So when you look up the definition of a standing committee, it's the committee with ongoing jurisdiction.
Yeah, I think we should keep with our committee being only advisory. And when I think about this topic, I think about city councils and planning commissions. And the planning commission is usually, appointed individuals who specialize in planning. They have the authority to act separate from the city council on the city council's behalf, but they have the power to be beyond advisory. In our case, we don't have any of those types of committees, and usually our committees are just 3 trustees, so I think that it's fine like it is. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's worthwhile having those 2 standing committees rather than having to reform, reauthorize them every year. We know we want to keep having them. We change the membership every year. But I don't have a problem with having those standing committees. I know some boards have more than 2. And what was the change in section 3 that you were suggesting?
Number one, if we want to keep them, then the first question is, do we want to list them? That's what CCLC recommends, that we don't have to, of course. But then for section 3.0, I would just delete the language that are only advisory and just say committees have no authority or power to act on behalf of the board of trustees.
Is there any advantage to listing standing committees? Because I'm not really seeing any advantage, but I'm not opposed to it.
I don't care. I don't mind keeping the word advisory, because to me it's like the committees are going to make some sort of decision and then bring it back to the board for a vote, which is an advisory type of position. But I agree with it. Should say that they have no authority or power to act on behalf.
So you would like to keep language?
I mean, I would just keep it, but it doesn't really matter.
I would be okay with keeping the word advisory as well.
I'm fine with keeping it the way it is. Trustee Lopez, do you feel strongly about taking that out?
Well, again, it looks to me like it was written at a time when we did not have standing committees, or we did not recognize that we have standing committees. Now that we do have them and recognize it, it doesn't make sense to me to say that only the advisory committees have no authority to act. So that makes it sound like the standing committees do, and that is not the case.
Well, I would strike the word that. So I'd say the board of trustees committees are only advisory, and I put an and, have no authority to or power to act. So
now you're talking about abolishing the standing committees.
no, I would include the standing committees like you said. I would put them in the language. To me, the board of trustees committees would include standing committees or ad hoc committees.
When you call them, the policy is making a distinction between advisory committees and standing committees. So if we keep the word advisory, then we're still implying that the standing committees do have authority.
Okay, that's fine. Then just have no authority. That's fine. Either way, I just want to make sure both are known. It's known that all of them are advisory and have no authority.
What about changing it from the beginning? What if you say no committee of the board has the authority or power to act, and then you're covering all of them?
That seems clear.
Yeah. Same idea.
Are you good with that change?
Can you just say it one more time?
I just started with no, so no committee of the board has the authority or power to act on behalf of the board of trustees.
I like that.
And then in the second sentence, we have to modify it to say findings or recommendations of advisory committees shall be reported, after which they shall be discharged. Because this doesn't apply to the standing committees. Again, this was just written at a time when we've only had advisory. So
That does make a little bit more clarifying.
What about making that section 4.0 to separate between all committees versus advisory committees?
4.1 does recognize that the standing committees.
So you say 4.0, findings or recommendations of advisory committees? Yeah.
Yes, 4.0. And you added the advisory term where?
Findings or recommendations of advisory committees shall be reported, and then we can just delete the special in the next part of the sentence, after which such committees shall be considered discharged.
Seems pretty clear. You okay with that?
Yeah, I like it.
Okay. DP 2305, annual organizational meeting. The only change here was Reference. BP 2310, regular meetings of the board. Again, clarification on the reference. Changing board to board of trustees where it occurs. And one instance of, let's see, in 3.0, saying that regular meeting of the board is always within the boundaries of the district, except in few cases, including its meeting during a proclaimed state of emergency. I'm assuming that's probably something that was
Post-COVID. And then a perfect example would be the fires, the recent fires, where some districts were forced to have a special meeting outside of their boundaries.
was that a change in vote or just like a recommendation, a good thing to have?
I think it was legislation that changed board Brown Act requirements.
Makes sense to me. Okay. BP 2315, closed sessions, updating some of the references. Section 1.3, well, this was discussing when closed sessions, or what closed sessions can include. And previously it said advice of counsel on pending litigation as defined by law. It's changed to advice of counsel on pending litigation or the initiation of litigation as defined by law. And one slight change, putting an and in 1.10. Anybody have any problem with the sheets? Okay. 2320, special emergency meetings, there are no changes there. Suggested, anyone have anything? Okay, and 2330, quorum and voting, some updates to references, changing board to board of trustees, clarification that two-thirds majority is required for resolutions intending to sell or lease district real property which is or which is not or will not be needed by the district for school classroom buildings, which previously it only said to sell or lease real property. I think that's probably okay. Adding also a two-thirds requirement, section 4.7, resolution to pursue the authorization and issuance of bonds pursuant to particular parts of the California Constitution. I assume that's probably the legal requirement, correct? Or is that just a clarification that it's not a change?
It was in the guidance that CCLC provided as part of what requires a special vote.
Okay. So perhaps before it didn't require a two-thirds vote, and now they're saying that it should be a two-thirds vote, which could be because their recommendation or because it changed the law. Yes, right.
Yeah, I was asking you why that requirement is that a legal requirement or is that just a recommendation?
That's the question.
Well, the reason I'm asking is because if you have a board of 7, then it's 4.6, that means you have to have 5 out of 7. If it's a board of 5, you have to have 4. So it's just, so it's like, instead of 2/3, that's like 80%. I just didn't know what the requirement is, why that's being suggested.
The only information I can offer is that the language that the league provides just notes that it's legally required, and it lists them as one of the ones that require 2/3. So
Okay. Well,
I would venture to say they could add it if it was a suggestion to a legally required policy.
okay. Yeah, we're saying it's required, it doesn't sound like it's optional. It's a little interesting, it's putting a higher threshold for board approval to issue the bonds than it is to have the bonds approved by the public.
Well, sorry, one more thing, and that is like in a situation like we have right now where we have a trustee out, we have 6, so it's like, I think the supermajority still has to be out of 7. So it's like you have to then have 5 out of 6 voting for it, that kind of thing. So it's just interesting.
Because the number of trustees we have hasn't changed.
Right.
Any other comments on this one? Progress, DD 2340 agendas, some of the changes in references. Posting the agenda, previously said it will be posted adjacent to the place of meeting, changed to posted in a location physically accessible 24 hours per day. I think that's a change in the law.
Yes.
Yeah.
It needs to be available to the public even if the building is closed.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't have to be adjacent to the place of meeting, it's someplace that's accessible.
Window, glass door.
Okay. Also change, if requested by a member of the public, a copy of the agenda or documents constituting the agenda packet shall be provided by mail or email. Whereas before it just said that we will provide public access to the agenda information.
We post the entire agenda online.
All right, that's all. Yes. Ed?
Just one or two things. So at 1.0, it says agenda shall be developed by the chancellor. And I think we should add in consultation with the president of the board of trustees to make that consistent with the weekly 22 officers. That's what it says there. Also, that's a recommendation of the CCLC.
Well, I think in the, whichever VP it is that talks about the duties of board officers, one of the duties of the board president is consulting with the chancellor about the agenda, I think.
Right. So for consistency, this should say resolved by the chancellor in consultation with the board president and the board of trustees.
And obviously that is what we do.
And in 5.1, at the end where it says a board meeting, we should strike A.
Items submitted by members of the public must be received by the office of the chancellor 1 week prior to the regularly scheduled board meeting, not a board meeting. Yes. Yep.
What section was that?
The end of 5.1, there's regularly scheduled a board meeting. Regularly scheduled board meeting.
Thank you.
And then I just had a question about this one. Our practice has been to allow the chancellor to pull items from the agenda at the beginning of the meeting or when we get to an agenda item. And the board policy doesn't say anything about that. So things cannot be added to the agenda after it's been noticed, except for these circumstances listed here. And so I've always wondered about the idea of the chancellor pulling items from the agenda, whether that is allowed or whether the better practice would be simply to table those items. So I don't know the answer to that question, whether there's anything in the law regarding pulling items from an agenda that has already been noticed. But if that is okay to do, then I would say we should say something about it in the policy, that the chancellor can pull items from the agenda with no under certain circumstances, whatever the circumstances may be. And also does the board have to agree, is it with the board approval that the chancellor can pull items? Whatever the situation is, I think we should stipulate it in this board policy because it's something that's always been unclear to me.
That one, I think I can answer in case Dr. Newell also has. Under one of the principles of normal parliamentary procedure is that the agenda, until it is acted on by the board, is only a draft. In some cases, a legislative body will act at the beginning of the meeting to formally adopt the agenda. The alternative is to simply start in on the agenda and sort of by implication say that it has been then finalized as the agenda. So that would allow items to be removed before it starts being acted on. Because at that point, it is still just a draft of an agenda. it's not a final agenda. That's just, find that in, Robert's other places.
Well, yeah, and so Robert's rules applies to, general rules of procedure, but in the case of a public board, we're governed more by, the government code and the education code. And so it is different because, as I say, there are specific requirements for adding things to the agenda.
Right, you can't
After
do
that's
that.
been noticed, you can't do that.
But there's no requirement that you then have to act on things that have been noticed as possibilities. And again, until the legislative body acts to finalize the agenda, either specifically by doing it or proceeding as if they have, then it is still just a draft of an agenda for the board or other legislative body to accept or not accept, or make changes until the point where they start acting on it as being a final agenda.
So the question then is, who can pull items from the agenda? Can the board president, just the chancellor, or how does that work?
I would recommend that both can pull if it's something that's drafted.
So, and I'm not sure we can just make this up as a thing. So I think we have to maybe get a legal opinion on how that works, whether after an agenda has been noticed, what exactly can happen. Can the board president just pull things from the agenda? Can the chancellor just pull things? That would be good. Thank you.
I just want to make another quick comment. Just if Trustee Lopez to clarify, said pull an item versus table an item, just if you can clarify the differences.
Well,
What you're referring to.
pulling an item is the practice that we have allowed the chancellor. So when we take up the agenda, the chancellor has in the past simply pulled some items for various reasons. Whereas tabling an item would be, the item is still in the agenda, but when the board gets to it, the board decides rather than resolve the matter at that meeting, they table it for consideration at a different meeting. And that would be an alternative way of handling any kind of situation where the chancellor wanted to pull an item, could instead of pulling the item, table it, the board could table it. But if it is fine for the board to, for the chancellor to pull items from the agenda, then, I have no problem with that process. I just wonder whether that requires board approval, whether the board president can also do it. I think we just need some clarification on exactly how that works. Again, after the agenda has been noticed to the public.
If it's okay for the chancellor to do it, if it's okay for the board president to do it, and if it's okay for any member of the board to do it, are those the three scenarios?
Well, I didn't mention the last one. I hope that's. I don't think we want to get into that. But I guess when the chancellor, if the chancellor can do it, does it require the consent of the board? I guess is one question. Also, can the board president do it?
Right.
I just want to say I agree with everything that's been said, and I don't think it has anything to do with parliamentary procedures, but I do want to remind if there is, that we have not formally adopted Robert's rules. We actually do not have parliamentary procedures that are officially established here, so that's something to keep in mind, but I don't think it applies. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, what we have said is we will be guided by Robert's rules.
Yeah.
But my experience with parliamentary procedure, and not only Robert's but others, is that a general tenet of parliamentary procedure is that until the legislative body actually adopts the draft agenda, it is still just a draft agenda. And I think it makes sense to allow the chancellor, or president, whoever, to pull an item that, for whatever reason, you don't think should be considered during that meeting, as opposed to having come out and have to be tabled, because that means it is actually being considered. And I think the only reasons for, that I've seen for pulling an item are that either something is no longer relevant, or it's not at a level of development where it needs to be considered by the board, or there could be some other reason why, chancellor doesn't want to be considered during that meeting, initially thought it would be, and then for some reason it's not going to be. Barbara.
Okay, sorry, I'm reading the room and I think everyone's asleep. But, it is the only time the board can discuss this. We have to do it in open session, so, lucky you tonight. One very hopefully minor point, that on 8.0 in your agendas, It says members of the Board of Trustees may place items on the agenda by contacting the Chancellor's office. Every other group we've asked to give at least a week's notice, and I think that we should also make sure that we have at least a week's notice. So the other ones say add reporting 1 week prior to the regularly scheduled meeting. I think we should add that for us as well, out of consideration to all involved.
All of that doesn't take into account anything that may come up less than a week within the time frame to have an emergency item put on, which is what, 72 hours, is that right, Alva?
For an emergency meeting, 24 hours.
But say
No, I
something,
mean, the changes in the published agenda.
You can make changes in the published agenda here at the beginning of the meeting if there's, if the board votes on it at the beginning of the meeting to make a substantive change.
For adding something that wasn't publicly noticed as well.
But it has to be dire and necessary. It can't be, we want to give all the raise.
Sure.
I would second that.
And I'm sure in consideration for the Chancellor's office workers, we would always want to give as much notice as possible.
So you're saying if we add that language, it would still allow us the flexibility under an extreme emergency to change the agenda?
Because we have a whole, policy that outlines emergency and special meetings.
So I would like to do that.
What's the language that we're adding?
Just the similar language to, members of the Board of Trustees may place an item on the agenda by contacting the Chancellor's office 1 week in advance of the regularly scheduled meeting. Same language that's under 7.1 and same language that's under 5.1. See?
But that would not, for instance, allow something to be placed on the agenda in time to be reviewed by NOCCCD, because that is less than a week before the meeting.
That is also correct.
But it's the same language for all the other groups. That same thing holds true.
And that practice does happen. We do, there are items that do not appear on the in the DAC packet that do appear in the final agenda for the same reason, because they weren't finalized at the time that the DAC packet was distributed. So it would be that outside of the norm. And again, you're adding language here that should the request come, the chancellor in consultation with the board president will decide that, yeah.
It's the same language for the academic senate, and it's the same language for the public. That's all I'm asking to be the same.
Where is that in some
It's the center.
5.0 is about members of the public.
Right.
So 5.1 is members of the public. So where does it talk about?
It's 7.1. It's the same language.
Oh, 7.1. Agenda items submitted by the academic senate must be received one.
And I will strike the A from 7.1 as well.
Okay, people good with that change?
Okay.
Okay. We're making progress. BP 2345, public participation at board meetings, changing board of trustees, and then in section 2.0, striking language, let's see. Okay, about members of the public may submit written communications to the Board of Trustees on items on the agenda and/or speak to agenda items at the board meeting. And then taking out the following text, written communication regarding items on the board's agenda should reach the office of the Chancellor not later than 5 working days prior to the meeting at which the matter of concern is to be before the Board of Trustees. So that 5-day requirement is being taken out. Was that because of recommendation for good practice, or
Yeah, if they send the policies in strikeout format sometimes, and that language was stricken out, I don't have any, I don't know exactly why, but I know it is also a legally required policy, and it is not contained in the requirements any longer.
So I don't see a reason to keep 5-day requirement. Okay, good with that one? Yes, sir.
Just a minor point, 1.1.1.1, we had his, her, and then in 1.1.2.1, his or her. So we're just changing those two.
That should not be there.
Change, his or her residence changed to their residence. Okay. Good on that one? Okay. EP 2350, speakers, changing board to board of trustees. And other change is a speaker who utilizes a translator shall be allowed a maximum 6 minutes to address the board of trustees. That's because they're allowed twice as much as ones who are not using a translator. That's by ed code, so that.
Right, legal requirement, something we've always done, it's just a grammatical change. So it's in line with the other listings.
Okay, and that's all that's there. Ready? PP 2355 decorum, changes in addition to the government code references. The following will be ruled out of order. Previously said disrupting or otherwise impeding the orderly conduct of the meeting, changed to disrupting, disturbing, impeding, or rendering infeasible the orderly conduct of the meeting. I suspect that's not making a significant change, it's being clearer about things. Okay. And then section 2.2 about removing somebody if they have been disruptive, disturbing, ... Previously, it said a warning and request that they curtail disruptive behavior will be made. Changed to before removal for conduct other than an individual's use of force or a true threat of force, the presiding officer shall warn the individual that behavior is disrupting the meeting and that failure to cease the behavior may result in the individual's removal. The presiding officer or their designee may then remove the individual if they do not promptly cease their disruptive behavior. Okay, and it looks to me like the change is that the specification that this is if there is not force being used or threatened. Previously it said, looked like it said that you had to give a warning in all cases. It seems like it's probably a good idea to be able to short circuit all that free stuff if somebody is actually causing violence or threatening. That's right.
Yeah, well, the good news is, in my last 8 years, we haven't had to throw anybody out, so this has never come up, but I would like to know a little bit more about it as the board and board president, and one of the questions I have is, use of force is a very general term, and, I think these days, if somebody was to spit on another person, that's like physical assault or something like that, so I want to know what the limits are, or what, if that would be enough, if somebody was to spit on another person, would that be enough to escort them without a warning? And then also, our different meetings, depending on where they are in the location, when they're at the NOCCCD or NOCCCD headquarters, we do have our security team there, and I imagine they could be called upon to help escort somebody out if we needed to. Here we have some armed officers outside, but I don't know if they necessarily report to us or we could ask them to assist in that situation. So I want to understand this the subject a little bit better, just in general. I have no problem with the changes in the policy, but I think use of force may be very general. At least I'd like to understand what exactly that entails.
Yes, and we often, it says see board policy ... But we also have a policy about no weapons, and I think that maybe we should add that here as well, so that it's clear that even at board meetings that no member in attendance can have any type of weapon. I don't want any changes other than also see board policy about the no weapons.
I just think we gotta be careful a little bit because like our campus safety team, if they can have a can of pepper spray, does that count, And they're doing their job as campus safety officers, so I think we need to figure all that out.
I think the policy says unless authorized.
Okay.
So you're asking just that the C board policy should include the board policy?
Yes.
That has it.
Yes.
Any problem with that? Good answer. Anybody have a problem with that?
I would just say as long as it doesn't impede on anybody's Second Amendment right to defend themselves. I know that campuses, there are no gun laws anyway for all campuses, so things like that, but it's like people still have a constitutional right to protect themselves with that, whatever means is legally available.
It sounds like this is referring to a board policy we already have.
It's board policy 3530.
Do you want to include the board policy and the AP or just the BP?
Board policy is fine for me.
I mean, if you reference the board policy, doesn't that by implication also include the associate AP for it?
No, not necessarily. We list them both. I would suggest you do the AP. The board policy is just like one sentence. The AP is the one that kind of has the meat to it.
Okay. Okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. BP 2360 minutes is really just a couple changes referring to the legal sections that are important for that. So nobody has a problem here. BP 2365, same thing referring to a government code section that is relevant. That's the end of the BPs.
Oh, sorry, one thing on recording.
Okay, yes.
At the end of 2.0, we should add or broadcast. So the sentence is, however, if the Board of Trustees finds by a majority vote that the recording or broadcast cannot continue without noise, etc., then such person shall be directed by the Board of Trustees to stop the recording or broadcast.
And that seems like that is within the limitations that are being talked about, because it's talking about any audio or video recording, which is that I'm not going to include broadcast or putting that.
So it's just that the sentence starts with a finding by the Board of Trustees that the recording or broadcast cannot continue, so then the Board President can order a stop to the recording or broadcast.
You have that all up? Yes. Anybody have a problem with that? Okay. And that's the end of the BPD. Okay. We're taking a big breath. Okay, so that was item 6A for information. Those will come back to us. 6B is an information item. Received as information revised administrative procedures in Chapter 2 and administrative procedure in Chapter 3. And these are just informational. Do they have any comments on any of these? Otherwise, we won't go through them shortly. Okay, this is just information. Okay.
Just one comment or question about the immigration enforcement activities. It would be nice, I think, to have a board policy on this. So currently, what's being proposed here, or what we've done, is that we have instituted an AP without a BP. And so normally an AP is implementing a BP. So in this case, we have no board policy, just an AP. And I'm just wondering about why we proceeded in that way. Why we didn't first create a board policy.
I'm sorry, what number was it?
This is the last one. It's AP 3415. Immigration enforcement activities.
This is a legally required AP that the league provides language on. They don't provide language on a BP. It was brought to our attention that we didn't have it, so that's why we incorporated it. I did a quick search to see if there was any BP language. There isn't any at any college that I found. It's not to say that we don't have one. And you're correct, Typically, there's a corresponding AP to a BP, but that's not always the case. We have about twice as many APs that we do BPs. And I can't give you a reason why, but it's not a hard and fast rule that we need to have a BP for it. But again, it's only providing the rationale for why we move it forward.
Sure. It just, in this case, it seems nice to me, it would be better to have a BP because basically the board is being left out of this process. Like, we're just being told, okay, here we have an AP, and you don't have anything to say about it, this is for your information. And because the only way a board can have any input on an AP or request any revisions to an AP is if there's some inconsistency with the BP. But there's no BP, so in this case we have nothing to say about it. And that to me is a little problematic. So I'm fine with the AP, I think it's good. I just think it's unfortunate that we don't have a board policy. The board did pass a resolution on this back in 2017, I think, and so maybe the board, that resolution kind of stands in place of the board policy, and view this as implementing the resolution perhaps. But in general, I don't like this practice of just having APs that the board can have no say over, and there's no BP.
Are you thinking of BP that would essentially just say we will follow the ed code sections that are in the AP, or that would be more specific?
Well, I'm not sure what the BP should say, but I think it should be something that the board, has an opportunity to discuss and vote on. It's odd to me that the CCLC doesn't have a template for a BP on this one in AP, but
Just doing a quick glance on our policies, not necessarily all of the ones that the league offers. There tends to be only an AP when there's a legal requirement of some sort. I don't know if that's because the interpretation is that's the law and we need to implement it, and typically APs are the how we go about implementing it. I know, for example, just as I'm looking at it, we have an AP on smoking on campus. We don't have a corresponding BP, registered sex offender information, the same applies. Things of that nature, responding to harassment based on Title IX, those types of procedures, we only have an AP and not a BP.
And would that be, I guess, generally because I think there's some general BP that talks about we will follow the law. So those are, in essence, that's already included. The law requires this, we've already said we're going to follow the law.
I don't know. I think kind of the way that the policy practice is framed is the BP tends to be the what, the intent, and the AP is the how. So maybe because it's a legal requirement and we don't have a choice, they don't provide a policy that says this board would choose to uphold immigration enforcement and just being general. So I don't know if that's the case. I just know that there tends to be some that don't have a corresponding BP because, and not because the board's point of view is being ignored, just because we don't have a choice. We need to have this, and that's all.
I appreciate your clarification.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, this is not an issue because if there's any kind of desire to arrest people on our campus, then they're going to go through whatever procedures they need to and be prepared for that. But I do have a question about where the line is drawn with law enforcement. If somebody were to kill somebody and then attend math class, I think they can go in and get that person. And I just want to understand, what the process is and where, the school's not going to get, I don't think the college are going to get in the way if there's some imminent danger or imminent emergency going on. I don't think, I think that that's a difference. So I'd like to understand, where is the line drawn? When can we force law enforcement to go through such procedures? And when is the emergency, to the level where they're going to just intervene as police officers? So
Section 5.0 defines exigent circumstances,
Mhm.
which says, a lot of the procedure says, this is what you have to do in this case, if it's this type of warrant, if it's this. Section 5.0 says, this is an emergency, step aside. If they tell you that this type of situation exists,
Yeah, but what do we have before this is my point.
We didn't have anything in
Well, we have MOUs with our police department, so that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, I know the police departments, they have MOUs. We also can have campus security can ask them to come as well. But I think they can also go onto our campus to take care of emergency situations. That's what I'm trying to figure out. I don't know if I have to go to the MOUs to see that, or if there's any other APs or anything else that I'm missing that it was before this immigration. A lot of this to me is super political, but before any new immigration policies that came about. And so that's what I just want to understand, like, where's the line? I understand in this case, I don't have a problem with requiring, subpoenas or, court orders or whatever is required, and I'm sure that, immigration doesn't care either. I mean, they would do that, but I don't think they're seeking to deport people from campuses right now anyway, so.
The only thing I can add, I don't know if the campuses want to add, this only speaks to immigration enforcement officers. This doesn't speak to law enforcement officers. This is for somebody who's on campus with a matter that relates to immigration status.
Okay, because 6 years ago, we passed kind of an anti-law enforcement item here that kind of did encompass to me more than just immigration. So, okay, thank you very much. I guess I'd like to get a copy of those MOUs, and I guess I'll read from there to start with, so I understand what police can do on our campuses, or when they're invited or when they're not invited, and maybe the MOUs would show those for me. So I guess Cypress, Anaheim, and Fullerton PD MOUs would be a good place to start. Thank you.
Ed, would you like to see if the board would like to direct that staff look at possibly having a DP about immigration enforcement activities?
Yeah, I think that would be nice because, we did pass a resolution on this, and but like I say, it was, I think, in 2017. I think we were a little bit ahead of the curve at that time, but now we're a little bit behind the curve because a lot of things have happened since then. Laws have been created. I think the state attorney general has a model policy on this stuff for local jurisdictions. And so I think it would be nice to look at that sort of thing and see what kind of board policies might be appropriate, because it is an important issue. I mean, smoking is one thing, smoking is important, but having a smoking AP without a VP is one thing, but this is, I think, much more pressing, timely, important. To me, it's the kind of subject that we should have a board policy on. So yeah, I would be amenable to that.
Would the board be supportive of asking staff to look into developing such a BP? We need to have a directive from the board.
I don't have a problem with it, but I don't know if it is going to end up with a slippery slope where it goes and kind of mission creep into a bunch of other APs that don't have a corresponding BP as well. And I think for this one, it does have that education code, or typically there's almost a government code that might even supersede board policy. So I don't have an issue with this one, but I do see that being an issue for, excuse me, then staff to do that for every other AP that's out there.
Is the recommendation to consider it? Just gather more information, because I wouldn't be opposed to a general board policy if we don't already have one. I kind of won't memorize about following law. If this is law, educational code, then we need to have it. So a general BP that talks about following law is fine with me if it's not already embedded in another policy. The questions we'll look into it.
I would think it would be possible without spending a whole lot of staff time to investigate, does CCLC have a recommended BP?
They do not.
Okay, have other districts done anything, what does legal counsel say? So without spending hundreds of hours seeing if it is worthwhile to develop a BP to go with this AP, and if so, to bring something to us, does that seem reasonable?
Just in response to the first 2 points, CCLC does not have an existing policy. I have not found a district that has a BP. That's not to say that it doesn't exist.
The Chancellor's office may have something to say.
We can reach out to Chancellor's office, but I just want to be clear, am I looking for existing policies or are we looking to develop language? What is it that I'm doing?
I think just additional information about if it's wise or not.
Yeah, it would seem like a good thing
It's
to
not
have.
covered under another policy.
And I believe that you already answered that, you haven't seen that there's one, but if we want to see if there's anything out there, that would be helpful.
I think there's a model policy that's been developed by the state attorney general, for example, but I can provide you with
So I don't see this as a 500-hour project that perhaps without a whole lot of effort, we found that either there's not a good reason for it or something could reasonably be developed that would be useful. Okay? We have consensus on that one. Okay, any of the other APs that we want to make comments on? See anything? Okay. That takes care of 6B. 6C, recommended the Board of Trustees adopt the recommended state and federal legislative priorities for 2025. Do we have a motion on this?
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Gonzalez, second by
Second.
Trustee Dunshee. Do you have any comments or questions or? Yes, Ryan.
I first wanted to ask about the state legislative priorities. If the term anti-racism includes combating anti-Semitism, we've seen an uptick on campus, some issues with anti-Semitic kind of attacks, and at our own campuses, by the way. And so I'd like to understand if part of the things we will be doing when we're advocating at the state level is to be coming up with ideas on how to improve those situations to make sure that our faculty, staff, and students feel comfortable on campus. So can somebody answer that question, please?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a general assumption that we make, that we, as an inclusive community, are going to do all we can so that people feel welcome, invited, so they can either do their job or get their education on our campuses. But part of it is looking at the data. What does it say? And we've actually had staff collect, claims that have been made, whether they were anti-Semitism or other claims of harassment, etc., all the categories, and disaggregate them by race, gender, and other demographics to see if we actually do have a problem or an area to focus in. Now, your question about, advocating, I think the advocacy is about really looking to support where the gaps are for student achievement. And if not, they're going to be supportive of that in our legislature. And I don't know if any other staff member want to mention, but that's the base of it.
Okay, and if we have any stats on people being attacked by race, I'd love to have that breakdown too, because I think that'd be really helpful. Obviously, nobody should be attacked. And I've also seen people that absolutely advocated for anti-racism, but were anti-Semitic. And so that's a problem too. Some people don't see that as a race sometimes, and that's another problem. So that's why I had that question. I don't think it's a problem here to the level of like Columbia University, which just got their $400 million pulled from their federal funding because they didn't do enough to combat that on our campus. But we do have here and there some issues, and I just want to make sure that we are including, that in our consideration. Thank you.
So I would like to commend, I don't know if it's Nostra, but is it Nostra? Nossaman. Okay. I like the way it was organized, and the main points are very clearly labeled. I think it encompassed pretty much what I would hope that we would be advocating for. My only point to maybe be a little more inclusive, it's kind of stated there, it's under number 5, the long-term financial stability. And it's stated in that finally the district urges policymakers to consider funding that is needed for local schedule maintenance. But in addition to that, I just want to again point out that California community college students are funded at a lower rate than either the UCs or the Cal States, and lower also than the K-12. So there's an imbalance. And then within the California community funding, there's an imbalance of funding with non-credit. We have very large non-credit. So maybe some wording very specifically, I don't know, we can advocate that, maybe it's a dream of mine someday, but clearly pointed out for the public, because the public doesn't always know that. They're kind of shocked that, we do things at a much lower funding rate than any of the other educational entities. And I would love to see that addressed. I don't know if my board members consider that that's my personal. So.
Sorry, does anybody else have anything? Okay, I'll go back to when you talk about the federal legislative priorities. One thing that I think also may have to do with long-term financial stability, if you will, is to understand that clearly we serve a lot of undocumented students in our district. So I think it would be helpful to understand how much we spend on advocacy efforts for undocumented students, and also consider how many undocumented students we serve. I'd like to see what that breakdown is. Certainly, we value all of our students, and if for some reason we lost a huge percentage of students, that would have long-term fiscal impacts as well. But I think it would be very helpful, especially in this today's kind of political climate, to understand how much are we spending for our advocacy efforts and other special programs, and then how many students are being served by that advocacy. So I'd love to see that going forward. Thank you.
I would just caution them, we're not really just focusing on the, how many undocumented students we're serving, but just in general terms, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, thank you. It's one of our priorities. We only have a few priorities here for the district, so it's something we're looking at. Thank you.
The news today said that the Department of Education is laying off, I don't know how many, a third of their staff, but half their staff. So, I didn't know how specific we want to get, but basic support for the Department of Education, and do we want to, is it even worthwhile putting into print these days, or is that going to make us a target? I don't know, but it seems that, I heard this quote that you have a voice, and your voice is not trying to change other people's opinion, but if you don't speak up, then you're somehow agreeing with the other side. And if we can have a voice here to say that what's going on is wrong. That was not the reason I said it. I don't know if that's something that has been discussed or what, but I don't know.
I'd love to have this conversation in a future meeting. Once upon a time, we did not have a federal Department of Education, and miraculously, schools were pretty successful back then. To me, putting power back to the states and bringing money back to the states would be more dollars per student overall. But we can have that discussion as far as eliminating the Department of Education, federal Department of Education. That doesn't eliminate education, it doesn't eliminate schools, nothing like that. So we could certainly talk about if we want to advocate for one thing or the other at a future meeting.
Not trying to get too political, to say, to me, the whole reason for forming the Department of Education originally was to bring in these disparate programs and efforts that have been scattered around other places in the government, consolidate them into one place to be more efficient. And now the argument is to get rid of the Department of Education and send these back out, and somehow that's going to be more efficient. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yes, not the first program, it's the opposite of what it said was going to do.
So, okay, any other comments on these? All right, we have
I just had one comment. I just wanted to turn, because I do agree with Trustee Ben on the point about servicing undocumented students. We want to make sure that we're reaching the students who need the services that exist. But conference that President Brown and I recently attended, we don't want to have a lot of detailed record keeping on it either, because that could create the opposite problem. It might even put more of those students on the radar. So there is that balance to reconcile as well. So I would just caution that we be careful in terms of how we approach that.
I'm just saying, I think that's data we have, I think that's data we have, and I'm not looking to out any individual.
And that's kind of what I was referring to earlier, is that we are careful with that, and we are definitely just generalizing information. And then what's the purpose of having it, right? I know it's a priority, but making sure that we are careful, especially during these times where anything that can be highlighted could work against us. So being cautious with that.
Right, we have a motion that's moved and seconded to adopt the recommended state federal legislative priorities. Vote, Student Trustee Johnson.
I believe that the proposed legislative priorities support the students at NOCCCD, so I'm voting in support of them.
Okay, so support. Trustees in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And abstentions? No? Motion passes unanimously. 6D, adopting a resolution verifying that I was absent with illness. Do we have a
Move approval.
Second.
moved and seconded? Vote, Student Trustee Johnson? Okay. Trustees in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and I will abstain on that one. That motion passes with one abstention. Okay. 6E, similar resolution for Trustee Blount being absent due to illness.
Approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Anthony Rosales. Student Trustee Johnson. Trustees in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. 6F, recommended the board discuss any potential future agenda items. Trustee Johnson. This is it. Do you have anything for?
Oh, yes, I do. Future? Oh, no, sorry. No comments. No, anything in future?
Yes. Just wanted to clarify, did you have any announcement for NOCCCD? I think that's what we were referring to.
Oh, the announcement.
This is just
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
We're not gonna miss
My
this.
apologies. I do not have any future agenda items. My apologies.
Have any? Okay, and section 6. Okay. Section 7, study session. Recommends the board conduct a study session on district's 2024-25 fiscal policy. I'm assuming, okay, Chancellor Breland will turn this one over to you.
Yes, I'm going to turn it over to Vice Chancellor Williams and his team, and I want to thank everybody who had a hand in preparing this report. I know they are chomping at the bit to deliver the news to the board and engage you all in this study session. So, Vice Chancellor Williams.
And I've been assured this is limited to 15 minutes, right, Fred?
Our portion, I don't know how long your portion will be. I do want to just kind of acknowledge Trustee Dungy that the people are asleep the previous section. So I just want to get that out on the record. And so thank you for giving us the opportunity to kind of explain where we think we are at this particular point in time. I think one of the direction that we received from the Chancellor was to really kind of take a look at our fiscal condition for the current year as well as moving 3 years. I will caution you that we don't know what's going to happen even this year, and it gets less likely things will happen as we think they're going to happen in subsequent years. So just kind of keep that in mind. So we have a presentation. The presentation really kind of follows the information that was in the agenda item. We're going to breeze through this very, very quickly. The intent is to have a dialogue and allow you to ask questions versus us just kind of giving you information. So we're going to breeze through this hopefully in less than 15 minutes. So, and then you can ask whatever questions that you would like. So that's pretty much. I'll come back at the end. So we're going to actually have Erica do most of the presentation.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor. Good evening, trustees, chancellor, members of the community. So this is the items we're going to be covering in our presentation today. We're going to start off with an update on our 23-24 actuals, then an update on our current year budget, then moving into budget assumptions for the coming year, 24, 25, 26. We'll then go into our economic outlook, our multi-year projections, our health risk analysis, benchmarking fiscal performance, and then we'll end with our budget planning considerations. So starting off with the 23-24 actuals. So if you remember last fiscal year when we closed the books, we closed the 1% deficit factor based on the information we had at the time. That is based on about $2.66 million. The recalculation came out from the state treasurer's office just last month, and they're showing a 0% deficit factor. So what that means for us is we're going to be showing an adjustment in 24-25 for the current year and recognizing the additional $2.66 million in revenue. So that's good. That's good news. Moving on to 24-25, our budget at P1. So if you recall, we were below our FTS targets at P1. What this means for us is it's actually no change in the total revenue that we're expecting to recognize because we are under hold harmless. We did want to highlight that the state chancellor's office is showing a 7.11% deficit factor, which for our district would be $18.68 million of revenue going in the opposite direction, so less revenue to our district. We are expecting the deficit factor to shrink as more information comes in. Basically, there's a true of property taxes that still needs to be done. That usually is done by P2, and then there's more information coming regarding the EPA funding. So we're expecting that deficit factor to shrink as more information comes out. At this point, we're not really too concerned with the deficit factor. Overall, we are expecting a surplus at the end of fiscal year 24-25. So moving on to our upcoming year budget assumptions. So for 25-26, total estimated revenue that we're anticipating is about $286 million. The biggest portion of that is going to be our SCIF revenue. We are expecting we're going to be under hold harmless in 25-26, just based off of 24-25 P1 FTS numbers. Some of the other things we're factoring in the assumptions for revenue, 2.43% COLA that's applied to the SCIF rates. We're also using the 23-24 headcount data for the supplemental and the student success allocations. The other revenues makes up the difference, so the 24 are about $24 million. For unrestricted lottery, we're basing our estimates using $191 per FTS and using the 24-25 P1 numbers. And then for self-supporting revenues, we're using the 23-24 actuals for the assumptions. So going to the other side, the expenses, budgeted expenses. Total estimated expenses at this point in time is $274 million. These are some of the assumptions that we're using. So using 24-25 position control, we're also adjusting for regular second column increases. We're including any negotiated salary increases that we know about at this point in time. We're including the PERS rate increase from 27.05% to 27.40%. We're also including a health and welfare increase of about 5% over the prior year. We're including the overload for full-time faculty increase of about 15%. For other budget center expenses, we're using the 23-24 actuals instead of 23-24 budgeted numbers. And then we're just adjusting for CPI 2.92% for that.
Just a couple comments on that. We have begun discussion with our Council on Budget and Facilities and our District Consultation Council and kind of reviewing these assumptions. In each one of those meetings, we'll continue to have these discussions and refine the numbers as we get farther along. I did want to point out on the COLA that you saw for the year, we will receive the rate increases, but we don't expect to receive any additional dollars. We're still at that magic number, the $262 million, which is our new floor. So that's an important number to keep in mind.
Thank you, Fred. These are the items that are not included in our budget. These are the items not included in our budget assumptions because we don't know from negotiations with CSEA and adjunct faculty, and then there you see what the cost out would be for the different percentage increases. Also estimated cost of adding 34 new full-time faculty, that would be about $6.4 million. The cost savings for vacant positions, approximately $15.4 million. We're still reviewing the vacancy listing. Also the impact of the job family studies. There's different scenarios that we've costed out. That's projected between $6.6 million to $8.2 million. Also additional budget center costs. Since we're still working through developing the budget, there's still additional costs that haven't been factored in yet, such as student food programs, student advocates, mental program. We also are not including a state deficit factor at this point in time for the 25-26 budget. So moving on now to California's economic outlook. So just a few highlights here. These are the some of the key economic indicators that we're taking a look at. Cost of living continuing to rise, potential tariffs and federal funding reduction. Potential tariffs and federal funding reductions are adding to just a great deal of uncertainty. UCLA does their own economic forecast. They released it recently, and they're citing a couple of those things as just indicators that there's just more uncertainty since a new administration has come on board. So because California's the state budget relies heavily on the stock market, which is extremely volatile, this just means we're just in a very uncertain time for budgeting. High school demographics, so a couple of board meetings ago, I think you heard from RNL, and they provided some statistics on how high school graduates are trending nationwide and then for the state. We also took, for this presentation, we took a look at just the county of Orange. We're showing the same numbers compared to, from now to like in 10 years, it would be about like a 14% decrease. So that's a very, very significant decrease, something that we're watching. Moving on to our multi-year projections. So there's a few scenarios we wanted to go over. There's this first one. This first one assumes that there is, assuming no growth. For budgeted expenses, we're using our 23-24 actuals as a starting point. We're adjusting for regular step and column increases. Also, what we settled with bargaining units. It also includes increases in pension costs, an estimated annual increase in health and welfare about 5%. It includes estimated increase to non-personnel costs by a change in CPI, the Consumer Price Index. The scenario also assumes that the retiree benefit contributions is being paid out of the irrevocable trust. So it's a little bit small, so it's at least for me to see, but if I could draw your attention to the total SCIF revenue line throughout in the middle of the page, you'll see $262.4 million. It's the same in 24-25, the same in 25-26. That's the funding floor that we were talking about, the magic number. We have to grow out of it in order to earn more dollars. In 26-27, we moved past that magic number because of the COLA being applied to the SCIF rates. So even though we're not growing, just by the COLA being applied to the SCIF rates, we eventually kind of grow out of the whole harmless money dollar amount. If I could then draw your attention to toward the bottom of the page, the surplus deficit line. So you'll see there's a couple of like the third line from the bottom, you'll see it's looking like we have surpluses in the out years. That's because we're using the actuals for 24-25 adjusted for the different budget assumptions we just talked about. If we were to use budgeted numbers, that's what's reflected on the last two lines. So the surplus looks a lot smaller.
And remember those items that we did not include in the budget. Job families, negotiations with CSEA, and that's United. So there's other things that will affect the budget. So this is kind of where we think we are right now. You will notice that we have positive numbers throughout the year. Now,
so moving on to our second scenario. So scenario number 2 is very similar to scenario number 1, but it assumes a 1% growth in FTS annually. So you'll see, if I can draw your attention to that surplus deficit line, it's looking a lot more positive. That last line compares what the surplus and deficits are for it compared this scenario to scenario number 1. So it's just showing you the change on that last line. And then scenario number 3 assumes same assumptions for expenses, but is showing a 1% decline in FTS. So you'll see what the difference is there on that last line compared to scenario number 1.
We use 1% both directions, so you can see if the number is bigger than that, you can kind of do the calculations in your head to see what the impact is on our fiscal position. So we are continuing to pursue the growth. We want to see, hopefully, numbers like we've seen the last 2 years and see better than 1%. But we are concerned about the demographics as well as the change in the funding formula in terms of calculating FTES. We know that that has to be implemented next year, and that will have an impact on our FTES that we report.
There's a couple more scenarios included in the packet that we don't have in the presentation. Scenario number 4 assumes, I believe, it's like a 3% increase in FTS, and then the last scenario 5, is assuming growth stabilizes, because it's very hard to keep continuing to grow indefinitely. So the last scenario is assuming a 3% growth, 2% growth, 1%, and then flatlining to 0 for the last 2 years. So moving on to our fiscal health risk analysis. So FICMAT, the Fiscal Crisis and Management Assistance Team, was created in 1991. It's tasked with assisting K-12 schools and community colleges identify and prevent, resolve financial, operational, and data management challenges. They put out a tool to help community colleges assess the risk of insolvency in the current and in the 2 subsequent fiscal years. A score of 40% or more would be considered high risk of insolvency. A score between 25 and 39% is moderate risk, and then a score of 24% or less would be considered low risk. So any organization is going to have some risk. It would be impossible to score a 0. We're going to go into the results of our district's risk analysis. I just wanted to highlight, these are some of the common risk indicators that are included in the analysis. I won't read all of them just for the sake of time, but here is what the results are for North Orange. So 17.2%, which is pretty good. And then in your packet, you'll have the full risk analysis, including the assessment for each of those sections. Moving on now to our benchmarking fiscal performance. So in this section, we're going to show how North Orange compares to the other 72 districts in the system. So this first slide shows you the top 15 largest districts. North Orange is one of the top 15. And this is showing you FTS for 23-24, and then comparing that to the unrestricted fund balance as a percentage of total expenditures to give you kind of a feel of where North Orange is compared to others. So for example, Kern has a very high unrestricted fund balance as a percentage of total expenditures. We're not the lowest, we're not the highest, we're kind of like in the middle there for the top 15 largest districts. So this is showing our fund balance by budget center. So our fund balance is a total of $141.5 million. 46.5 million of that is the board policy reserve. The biggest portion of the total fund balance is at the campus, is at the budget centers. So those are going to be the blocks that you see in orange. And then you have the restricted fund balance. So moving on to our 50% loss. So this is showing you all 72 community colleges. And I called out some of the ones that are either really high or really low, as well as North Orange. So we're hovering right above the 50% line, and that's a good thing because we want to make sure we're on the good side of 50% off. And you'll see most community colleges are kind of hovering in that area as well. Some of them are on the higher end, some of them are on the lower end. This is something to watch for as the district makes decisions about how it's spending dollars. Right, with the 50% law, to stay in compliance, we just need to make sure that the instructional expenses are at least 50% of the total unrestricted general fund dollars. Okay, moving on to academic salaries per total FTS. So this is just showing our contiguous districts. And then on the bottom, you'll see the average, median, max, and min. And those numbers are based on the 72 California community colleges in the system. So you can see North Orange is kind of in the middle. We're not the highest, we're not the lowest. We are above the median. So this is showing similar information, but for the classified salaries per total FTS. You see North Orange is in the middle in that chart, and then you'll have again the average, median, max, and min. We did have a question about who the max is, and that's in case we're wondering. And then similar information, this is just showing benefits for total FTS. Now going into our budget planning considerations, and I'll hand it back to you.
Just one comment on the information. We did include information from all 72 districts. This information is available on the Chancellor's Office website, so we pulled out the information. And this really is there to kind of take a look. If something were to happen within the district, where would we want to kind of focus our attention from that information from the 72 districts? You can kind of see where we stand with the other California community colleges. So I know it's kind of small in there, but it's information that's updated. We don't have the details between, for example, the academic and classified expenditures between management and, for example, academic management and academic salaries. It's all just what I'm going to major off the code, so that's how we pull the information for all 72 community colleges. So we wanted to get that information.
So these are the board policies and strategic direction that we consider during budget planning. So firstly, we assure that physical health and the stability of the district. We strive to maintain the unrestricted general fund reserve no less than 2 months of total general fund expenditures. We make sure that revenues are accruing to the district in excess of amounts budgeted are added to the district reserve for contingencies, and those would be available for appropriation only upon resolution of the Board of Trustees. And then the strategic direction that we highlight here is the district promotes a shared vision of responsible stewardship of district resources through transparent and inclusive decision-making and integrated planning. These are the major principles in our budget process. These were established by the Council on Budget and Facilities. So firstly, we balance ongoing expenditures and ongoing revenues. Secondly, we maintain the board policy reserve for economic uncertainties. Thirdly, we maintain appropriate autonomy for each budget center. Aside principal to NOCCCD and district services to use resources in a manner that best addresses the budget center's needs. And then I'll hand it over to Chancellor Williams to talk about other considerations.
So the basic principle that we always discuss with the board, and why you see information really on unrestricted general fund, is because we really are trying to show where we think we are related to ongoing revenues. So you'll see when we do all the accounting, we use a fund just for the current year activity, so we can kind of tell the difference between what's ongoing funding versus prior year funding or reserves. So you can always kind of tell where we are in any particular year and how much we may have left based upon our expenditures. So it's a very fundamental piece of everything we do. We look at ongoing revenues and ongoing expenditures. The 50% law compliance, that is a requirement, and we have always been in compliance. The number has gone down significantly, although this last year it kind of ticked up a little bit, but we are concerned about 50% law compliance. So when we make decisions, we are looking at does that affect the right side or the wrong side in terms of the calculation and how they affect. One of the other things we wanted to talk and share with the board is construction and facilities maintenance. We saw in the legislative priorities that scheduled maintenance is important. We'll tell you with the district, with passing on 2002 and 2014, we've been able to deal with a lot of facilities issue utilizing those funding source. When you run out of those dollars, and we are getting close to that point, we still have $174 million issued with the projects that we have on the table. We've got everything identified. If you don't pass another bond in the future, dollars out of your ongoing revenues and expenditures need to be applied to the construction and maintenance. So it's kind of an early warning here is that we're concerned to maintain our facilities. May require an additional bond in future years if you're going to participate in the state capital outlay program. There's a couple of things on the insurance front that we wanted to make. I want to kind of leave the board with. We think we have one of the best insurance programs through our JPA, but it does not cover earthquakes. So this is one of the things that CEOs lose sleep about. We have a major earthquake. We have no coverage for kind of floods, tsunami, or something crazy that happened like that. But we have no coverage for those. And we have been seen within the court system and why many businesses don't want to do business, especially insurance companies in California, kind of the atomic verdicts. We saw a major verdict in Moreno Valley Unified School District that were $130 million. At the time, this is going back many, many years, it was only $15 million in coverage. We have for liability, we have $55 million, up to $55 million in coverage. Of property, we have $500 million. But when you think about what's recently happened with the wildfires, how far is $50 million going to go in our assessed property values for our facilities? It's about $1.2 billion. So I just kind of want to leave that with you in terms of insurance. That is one of the board policies that require the vice chancellors to make sure we have adequate insurance and kind of some of the things that I've mentioned. And lastly, we wanted to talk about some of the uncertainties that we have not included in the budget. It's outlined in the assumptions that we have provided to you, but these things will impact the job studies, the collective bargaining negotiations that haven't been concluded. We don't know what's happening at the state level related to the wildfires. We've heard about in recent days the stock market's gone down over 2%, so it has a significant impact in these executive orders that are changing almost daily in terms of what those effects are going to be. So there's a lot of uncertainty. What I would leave you with is I think we're in very good shape fiscally. Looking at this year and the next 3 years, but we can only control what we can control. We can't control what's happening outside of our environment. So I think we're in pretty good shape at this point. So now we want to kind of turn it over to the board because we gave you a lot of information in the agenda packet. So ask away, and hopefully we'll be able to answer any questions you have.
Okay, just before I open it for questions, just have a plea. Each of your slides, you have a full page in landscape format. We have half a page in portrait format, and things like these spreadsheets are really unreadable. So take pity on our eyes. It's fine to intermix single page, half page, landscape, portrait, whatever. Give us things we can read, please, because we really want to know what you're saying.
We can provide a copy of the presentation at full scale.
Yeah. I thought the same thing as I'm trying to read it, but then I found in our agenda, they are there. In the page that I can't read, so I appreciate that.
I'm not sure, are the bar graphs all there also? Some of those.
So we included all the detail for the 72 details.
Yeah. Okay, so questions, comments from the trustees? Yes, Ryan.
I was just thrilled I could still read the font. I'm barely on there, but I'm still good. So I had a question, first of all, about the bond. You said we spent bond money on ongoing maintenance, other projects, and I think we're still in compliance with what we promised we would do to the taxpayers, for the taxpayers with the bond money, right? I mean, I think that those bonds were passed pretty vaguely. I know we didn't achieve all of our internal missions and goals and build everything that we wanted to, right? But when you said we're spending down bond money to maintain or whatever on some of the buildings, that's all within the legal rights or within our rights in the law, right?
You are correct. It's very vague language. we don't spend money necessarily out of the bond for general maintenance, but as we're doing projects, and especially renovations, we're taking care of issues that would need to be taken care of with other dollars at the same time. Same thing with ADA compliance, we're able to do these as part of the ESA requirements. So this kind of the point is we've not been getting scheduled maintenance funds, we've been kind of allocating one-time dollars that we have because of the whole harmless, but we are running out of those funds. If you don't maintain your buildings, then you're going to need to kind of find another source of funding.
Thank you. And then my other question is about kind of the 4-year forecast for the budget. I mean, it is looking a lot better, but I know our expenses have also gone up, of course, with salaries and benefits and stuff like that. But a couple years ago, we were trending, it was looking like we were going to be 18 million deficit, then 35 million deficit, I believe. And it looks like it's turned around quite a bit. And is that all because of enrollment increases that are getting us back to kind of pre-COVID levels, or is there anything else to that?
The enrollment is the big piece. Yeah. The last 2 years, as we've talked about, and that needs to continue to be our priorities. We need to get the enrollments back the best we can be. We were a little bit disturbed by the presentation that you heard at one of the previous board meetings about the challenges that we're going to have just due to demographics. But we've done a fabulous job in each one of our entities to restoring much of the FTS. So that is really the major cause. And kind of the other thing that two other points that I would like to make is if you would look at the percent that we've been spending on salaries and benefits compared to overall expenditures, you're seeing that we're closer to the 85%. We were significantly over the 90% for a while there. And so we'll kind of leave it at that for right now.
Yeah, but so far we have not been, we've been filling positions, right? We haven't like stopped filling positions due to attrition, cut back or anything like that. It's just for other reasons, just based on the overall ratio between the FTES budget and where it falls in there, or is there anything we've done to not backfill positions?
We look at all the positions, but you'll notice that you saw, I think, 16 additional faculty positions for next year, even though we're over the 50% line. We're continuing to pursue growth. That is kind of our number one strategy to pull out of the kind of the decline we have. I can't remember the other item that when we were looking at the significant deficit factors that if you remember how we described this, and it was something that we struggled with, I think, in terms of trying to how to communicate. But what are we actually earning versus what we're receiving? If you remember that whole harmless and emergency condition amount was, for a while there, was up to $30 million. You notice it's down significantly in all of the assumption and going away in the 26, 27 year. So that was kind of we were really talking about structural deficit versus the overall deficit. I think we continue to tell you we're going to continue to accumulate resources, but look at what we're earning compared to what we're receiving. That was what the difference was. So that was kind of the main reason that we saw all those big negative numbers, because we really wanted to kind of focus. We got to get our enrollments up.
Thank you very much. I have two more brief questions. And one is, when you take the 34 faculty members out of 6.4 million, it looks like the average is 188,000, but I know a major portion of that is benefits and other things that are allocated. Maybe even if you increase employees, maybe even an HR person or something for every percentage of employees you gain. But how is the breakdown between, when you calculate that, the salaries versus the benefits and other unfunded pension liabilities or anything else? How is that kind of broken down? Is it like 75%, 25%, or?
Well, the sturge rate's right about 20%. You have the Medicare is 1.45%. Workers' comp is about 0.5%. Medical is, depending, it kind of it varies. It's probably 25-30% is related to overall benefits, and it's different between the academic and the classified, because you saw the big increase over for classified is related to the PERS rate, which continues to increase I remember one time when I first started, we thought the PERS rate was going to maintain at 0, and now it's close to 30%.
Thank you very much. And then the last question, and I was just curious, I know over the years you've looked at kind of that percentage of salaries and benefits to the overall budget, and it gets to be dangerous for districts that go over 90% or whatever. Some of them, kind of gone into bankruptcy in the past. So how does it, is there a ranking for all college districts in the state that kind of says where they are in their budget and that? I know there's a lot of nuances too. It's not so cut and dry. There's a lot of, like you said, there's some districts are not as funded on their unfunded liabilities and stuff like that. But is there a measurement for all districts and to see how they rank, if they're at the 90% level or 85% or wherever?
Absolutely, it's in that the 72 districts and that little tiny writing in there.
Mm-hmm.
That's in there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I appreciate it. So one of my comments is that I appreciate the FICMAC scores. And very proud to say that our district has a very low score. I believe it always has had kind of a low score.
Yep, I've looked at this since it came out, and haven't shared it with the board, but it's the kind of the topic lends towards exactly what I thought you were looking for in terms of what's our physical health, and so we thought it was appropriate to include it at this time. But we have continuously reviewed this, as well as the Chancellor's Office has one as well. They do a kind of a fiscal monitoring, and the ACCJC does fiscal monitoring as well.
Yes, and I know that we've never been on any watch list, so I really appreciate that. And kind of along with that, I appreciate the transparency with the budget, and I just want to say that publicly, and I'd like that in the minutes. Okay. The other thing is this 50% law. I'm hearing a lot of discussion about it recently. I don't know exactly the date, but it seems to me it's kind of an old law, like 30 years or more, and it's never been looked at again.
Oh, it's been looked at every year.
It hasn't changed, maybe it's looked at every year, but I just would like some, I know we're in compliance, and I don't mind being in compliance, but I mean, have we as a district looked at how can I put this? Should we be advocating for it to stay the same, or should we be advocating for it to be adjusted?
I think the way, and we do have that in our legislative priorities, to look at the 50% law. But things like technology, years and years ago, not as much as the district's budget was spent on technology, but technology is becoming more and more for the instructional programs. So those are the areas that I think we're trying to look at. Another example is, what do we include for counselors and librarians? They're not counted on the right side of the 50% calculation, but from everything that we hear, they're critical for the success of our students, should be included. So those are really kind of the areas that we think need to be adjusted. Where we kind of run into problems is, what should that new number be? So what we think the number should be and what others think it should be is, we're quite on different pages.
So yes, you mentioned some of the oddities. For example, counselors are not they're not on the right side of the 50% law, but they are counted as the fund. So there's a disconnect between some of these accounting measures for the state. I think our goal, if you think of it as a taxpayer, you think, well, only half of the revenue goes towards education, and it seems terrible. But then when you realize, well, it doesn't include anything with student success, any of the student services, all of that, the food banks, everything that we do that is considered not as part of the academic aspect. But we know through literature and through knowledge that that is instrumental to helping students academically succeed. So there's a real disconnect with the way the law currently is and the purpose. So I don't know, I don't have an answer. I just have knowledge of the problem, so conundrum.
A couple of things that I think are going to help. We did increase the full-time faculty overload substantially. We do need to get negotiations concluded with ACFAC United. That's going to help. And all of the things we've been paying for the additional compensation to faculty certainly help on the right side of the calculation. So I think the other thing that we're waiting to see what the impact is going to be is the payment for part-time faculty medical benefits. That theoretically should help us, and we're waiting to see what the results of that will be.
Thanks.
Just one quick question for you. You mentioned the PERS rate several times in the presentation, going up several basis points, and I'm just curious because the surge rate wasn't mentioned at all. That is because it's pretty remain flat in the.
Yes, PERS rates remain consistent in 19.1, and so I think it takes legislative action to change that. So it hasn't changed for a number of years. The PERS rate is consistently gone up. And I think, Ryan, you mentioned, I think I mentioned 16 faculty. It is 34 faculty, and that will help us with 50% off.
Other comments, questions? Yes.
So I just want to say I appreciate Trustee Dunshie's observation of the paradoxes that exist in our system. You know, do this with less money. You know, this counts for you, this counts against you. But I also noticed in the presentation there are a number of districts that are well below the 50% law. And I know that some of them have been well below for quite some time. What is the penalty or what levers does the state have? I mean, because we put a lot of energy in making sure we stay, you know, above the 50% law. But I know San Mateo, Compton, they're focusing on student basic needs, hiring counselors, other support, staff, librarians, et cetera, that don't count on the right side of the 50% law. And they've been doing it for years. So what's the difference? Like, what's our motivation to keep going if they're doing it? Are there any consequences?
Well, what I always understood the consequences are is you have to pay the faculty in order to get it fixed. That's the only way to fix it. I was a little surprised to see the number of districts that were actually under. I know that Compton has special legislation that was passed when they went into bankruptcy, so I know that they have a pass.
San Mateo for about a decade now.
I will. They are, yeah, community support. I will ask that question next week when we meet with Chris Ferguson. I was actually surprised to see that number, many districts that were under. You got to get a waiver, or you got to apply for an exemption from that. I thought those were fairly non-existent.
We're just not relying on state funding.
Or not relying on state funding, yes.
Anything else? Excellent presentation. Thank you so much. Clear? Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Moving ahead to 8A, Chancellor staff comments. Start with Dr. Connell.
Good afternoon, and happy Women's History Month. At the NOCCCD, we are fortunate to have many extraordinary women who contribute to the advancement of our institution in countless ways. In fact, all of our faculty leaders currently and for many years now, most of our managers are women, an inspiring testament to the strength, expertise, and leadership in our NOCCCD community. So today I just want to take a moment to recognize 4 remarkable women who are present here today, who lead with grace, courage, and unwavering commitment to our institution and the district. Carla Prisler, DMA President, Michelle Patrick Moore, Academic Senate President, Marla Smith, AdPAC President, and Elaine Wise, CSCA President. Thank you so much for your leadership, advocacy, and dedication to our students and our faculty and staff. I'm also very excited to report that our own Dulce Del Castillo, Director of Research and Planning, is the recipient of this year's California Community College Women's Focus Rising Star Award. This award recognizes emerging and innovative leaders who are in their early career years for notable achievement, and also considers criteria such as women's advocacy, service, mentorship, leadership, community involvement, and career achievements. Many of us know Dulce's professional accomplishment in this district and even at the state level, but she's also very much involved in her community. For example, currently she serves as board president of the Women's and Children's Crisis Shelter in Whittier, and she also recently co-founded Sisterhood for Equity, focused on equity-driven research and evaluation to foster policy change and also leadership development. On another note, I wanted to share a very exciting update about a newly implemented student navigator program at NOCCCD aimed at increasing student retention through one-on-one interventions. According to the preliminary research findings, and the research brief is linked in my report, we already saw a significant increase in retention rates in the programs with assigned navigators. Specifically, we saw a 10% increase in CTE and a 9% increase in basic skills, measured by tracking student enrollments from fall to spring. I also want to acknowledge Maria Hernandez, who coordinates this program. Finally, my report includes an account of the recent Power Up Resource Fair and many community partnership and community outreach events done by our campus communications team. And that concludes my report.
Fulton College.
I do need the bigger font as well. Thank you to Trustee Evangelina Rosales for opening up your home on Friday. The time invested in not only letting staff be there to assist with setting up every day during the week before and the cleanup afterwards, so appreciated, but also because you were there doing it too. And thanks for covering all the expenses related to the rentals, photographer, centerpieces, and food for our volunteers, which were our students. Your care, concern, and generosity helped us at this key moment to build on the momentum that our interim executive director, Janet Manjarres, has created. Thanks also to Bridget Homnick, who is tending to a family matter this evening, for donating substantial beverages from her family business, Villains Brewery. And to everyone here who supported in any way, your generosity is appreciated, and every dollar will go to our spring student scholarships. Thank you. I would like to thank Fullerton College professionals China Barnett, Sandra Avalos, and Monique Delott for attending the California Community College Chancellor's Office Women's Caucus event last week in Northern California. Thanks also to our students, faculty, staff, and administrators for attending our Campus Women's Herstory Month event with author and poet Angela Aguirre, who wrote the book Confessions of a Firework. It was a great time. Last week, over 100 people joined us at the ribbon cutting ceremony for our new Rising Scholars Center, and I'd like to thank Special Project Administrator Aisha Kitchen and Faculty Coordinator Dr. Aziza Delgado for their leadership. 2 years ago, when we first started until now, we've grown from 20 students to 200 participants.
Thanks to those two for also working on submitting our grant proposal to the system-wide chancellor's office. Thanks also to Elizabeth Martinez, Interim VP of Student Services, for planning a very thoughtful student services in-service last week, bringing together almost 200 faculty, staff, administrators, and paraprofessionals to review progress, discuss priorities, and to build community. Thanks to Marshall Johnson for organizing our FC conference team attending a MED last week. We had 20 students and professionals who are there to learn and enjoy the program. I'm also ecstatic to report that our men's basketball team not only beat Citrus College, as I reported last time, but this Thursday night we are playing our first round of the state championship tournament at Mount Sac at 7 p.m. Please join us there to cheer on our Hornets. Tomorrow, our PETA program is offering Fill Your Boba Cup event from 12 to 2 for the campus community to enjoy. Finally, yesterday I was in Chicago as an invited featured panelist for 800 people attending the National Alliance for Hispanic Serving Institution Educators. Thank you very much. Happy Women's History Month.
Here, Cypress College.
Brief report this evening. Good evening. It's been a busy week at Cypress, and we have 3 significant events taking place. First up, Kinder Caminata, our annual visit from our area kindergartners. We anticipate to have 900 kindergartners on campus this Friday morning. So please join us, as they will be chaperoned by 150 chaperones from Cypress, Winter Park, Magnolia, and Savannah school districts. Thanks to our Charter Experience team for organizing this impactful event. Friday is also opening night for Hello Dolly, the production of our it's the first production of the semester. Performances are held this weekend and next weekend in the campus theater. I'd like to thank our theater crew, and especially our faculty, including Donnie Johnson. The show is also being directed by our faculty emeritus, Jim Hormel. On Saturday, we host the 50th anniversary of the Americana Gala Awards at the Westin Hotel in Anaheim. We anticipate over 600 guests joining us to honor Citizens of the Year from our 8 surrounding service areas. The event also honors Person of the Year, and this year it'll be AC Green, who notably played for the Los Angeles Lakers, alongside Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Magic Johnson, and then later on in his career with Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant. We look forward to seeing many of you there at this wonderful event. My thanks to our College Foundation for all the work that they have done and continue to do in preparing for this the largest fundraiser of the year for us at Cypress College. Our women's and men's basketball teams both had amazing seasons, which unfortunately came to an end this Saturday evening. The women's team finished 21-9 overall, second in the Orange Empire Conference, and advanced to the regional final. The team is coached by our alumna, Cypress alumna Brittany Imanku, who's also the OEC Coach of the Year this year, so she was acknowledged for her efforts. And she also was a part of the Cypress College State Championship team as a student back in 2005, so it's great history amongst our basketball program. I was at the men's game at Citrus. We were hosted by President Greg Schultz, who did a very gracious job of having us be on court and introducing us during the game. But for our men's basketball team, it was a historic postseason run, including the first time in program history, and since 1991, that we got this far into the basketball tournament. We won 2 games. And I was at both, and just a great bonding amongst our young men and the coach. The coaches did an excellent job. Just like to acknowledge Coach Drew Hamda for the work he's done with the program. Finally, you approved Randy Martinez as the Interim Dean of Social Sciences at Cypress. Thank you. He's been a faculty member at Cypress College since 1995. That concludes my report.
Facilities, no report. No report. Ramos, the charter.
Good evening, no report.
Dr. Craig,
No report, thank you.
okay. And Vice Stearns, public information.
No report.
Okay. All right, moving on to resource table personnel. Carla Chrysler, DMA President.
No report.
No report. Michelle Patrick-Noring, NOCCCD Academic Senate.
Good evening, board members. NOCCCD's Academic Senate recently voted to approve 2 items related to distance education, the NOCCCD POCR process, and the 2024 to 2026 version of the Distance Education Handbook. I would like to express gratitude to Karina Lopez, Distance Education Committee Chair, members of the DE Committee, and senators who contributed to the revision process. The latest draft of BP AP 7600 was presented to the Senate at the March 4th meeting to solicit feedback. The draft will return to the Senate with any additional revisions from DCC in April. The topic of AI has been circulating throughout the campus, and faculty are looking forward to the AI Expo on April 16th. NOCCCD's Senate will be working to develop syllabus and catalog language related to AI, with templates from our sister colleges as starting points. Thank you to the faculty leaders at both Cypress and Fullerton College for sharing your initial drafts with our Senate. We value the time and energy our colleagues put into their initial drafts. With fewer than 30 full-time faculty at NOCCCD, it is advantageous for our Senate to develop policies and procedures that have a solid framework in place that we can adjust to meet the specific needs of our faculty and student population. It is our hope that the district and board will develop board policies and administrative procedures specific to the use of AI that will help ensure that students understand the benefits of such technology, as well as any parameters in place to protect academic integrity within both the physical and virtual classroom settings. Last week, the academic leadership team, comprised of both managers and faculty leaders, met to brainstorm ways to develop or strengthen pathways for students hoping to complete certificates with NOCCCD. Emphasis was placed on helping students from start to finish when it comes to identifying their pathway, persisting within the program, and ultimately reaching their goal, which often includes seeking new or higher level employment opportunities. Our April Senate meeting will be held on an off-schedule date, Tuesday, April 15th, due to the first Tuesday of the month falling within spring break. Our faculty are participating on multiple hiring committees this semester, and we look forward to strengthening our NOCCCD team as each new faculty position is filled. Lastly, the election process has begun to fill Senate vacancies. Nominations are open to fill 4 adjunct senator positions, as well as Senate Vice President and Distance Education Committee Chair. The deadline to submit a nomination is 5 p.m. on March 25th. I'm sorry, I feel like I never look up, and I'm like looking at this on my phone. I don't want to bring my whole laptop, so apologies, but thank you.
Thank you. Kathleen McAllister, Cypress College Academic Senate.
Good evening, trustees. So the Senate meets this Thursday, and we're busy with several ongoing projects and work groups, providing feedback on the preliminary recommendations of the program discontinuance policy work group, the reassigned time work group, the Strategic Enrollment Management Academy, and the latest draft revisions for AP 7600 campus safety officers. The Senate approved an AI policy in fall, and we're finalizing plans to make the policy student-facing, and also considering a proposal to update our approved syllabus guidelines to require an AI policy statement. We're also working to ensure active faculty involvement in the Phase 3 convenings for Common Course numbering. On a more concerning note, we will also be discussing the latest winter intercession MOU, which was signed on February 19th. We were made of the MOU last week by accident. It's not something that the faculty asked for or expected, and faculty have been reaching out to me with questions and concerns. The MOU cites Title V, Section 55204 on regular and substantive interaction to justify a redefinition of the 5-week intercession as a 7-week intercession. although the time frame actually has not changed. It is a private intersection. Since the Senate has not yet met to discuss this, I'm not going to speak to the specific, to the validity of the interpretation of the Title V language or to the various concerns and issues that the MOU have raised. I will note that the MOU affects not only the academic calendar and faculty teaching schedules, which are the purview of the union, but also how curriculum is delivered, the viability of academic programs, and the success of students, which is the purview of the Academic Senate. The union should be consulting the Senate on these overlapping and intersecting issues, but it would also benefit the administration to get the Senate's perspective when discussing these issues with the union. We have the distance education coordinators, the accreditation chairs, our curriculum chairs are all have expertise in this area and can provide some valuable insight. Title V, Section 55204, which is cited in the MOU, states, regular and substantive interaction is an academic and professional matter pursuant to Sections 53200. So it's clear that this is a 10+1 issue, and that the district has bypassed the legal requirement to consult with the Academic Senate on an academic and professional matter. If the district is aware that consultation is not happening when it should, I believe it has an obligation to ensure that that does not continue. It would not be difficult to confirm that consultation had happened if indeed it had. Simply reach out to the Academic Senate and ask, were you consulted on this issue, so that we can let you know if we have been consulted or not. And so this is going to be also going to be a focus of our discussion at Senate on Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the Fulton College Catholic Senate? Trustee Deep, faculty.
Well, I didn't have a report, but I guess now I do. Just a reminder, of course you all know this, that intercession is the scheduling of intercession is your purview. We don't negotiate the intercession calendar, and we appreciate that the district brought us the MOU, and that the district also knows that they are to negotiate directly with the union. That's the law. We are the exclusive representative, and to go to another body or faculty directly is a per violation. It's against the law. So we appreciate that the district brought us the MOU to clarify what Title V says, and when the district brings us an MOU telling us that they will follow the Title V language, we will not say no, because that's what the district is supposed to do. So it's just clarifying that and the scheduling that is the district's purview. So just to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. Lane Mayosa, CSEA.
Good evening. A lot has been going on in our chapter lately. We're still in negotiations, having to share proposals back and forth. We're close to finalizing a couple more, but we're eager to negotiate wage, health, and benefits. It's in the high interest of our bargaining. As we move forward into impasse with the IT MOU, a lot to think about. Hopefully that we can come to an agreement on such an important topic. I say it again, we need to provide compensation to keep good employees without undermining the value of experience and future in our professionals. Our chapter meeting is on Wednesday, March 19th. It will be an honor to hold a vote to choose our new CSEA Chapter 167 logo, led by our own communication officer, Saya Rokia from Fullerton College. I would like to take some time today to thank our CSEA board for all the hard work that they do, the negotiations team for being so detail-oriented on all of those proposals, along with our labor rep representative. I also want to thank all the constituent groups that stand in solidarity with our members, district and college presidents for your monthly meetings, A special thanks to our classified professionals for the work that they do every day, covering for others and supporting our students, instructors, and the community. We all play a key role in the district. No job is too small, as we all are very needed. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Good evening, no report tonight, thank you.
Thank you. Members, okay, 8C, comments from members of the Board of Trustees. Robert Johnson, now your time.
Thank you, President Brown. First of all, I just wanted to say happy Women's History Month to all the amazing women in our district. Just a few comments. The first comment I had is about a power events that we had on March 5th, which was Wednesday in the Cypress Center. This is a resource event where students get to learn about all of our community resources, school resources. We had over 250 students attend this event and over 12 community partners that were offering support in areas of nutrition, financial literacy, transitioning to college, and more. Thank you to Fullerton College and Cypress College for showing support at this event to our students. I did talk to all of the community partners just so I could learn what resources and services they could offer to our students. I'm really excited to share with our school. The next thing I did want to mention is NOCCCD is starting to have its own mini club rush. In the past few weeks, we've been having few clubs that are being established. For example, we have the NOCCCD United Student Clubs, where it helps. This is led by one of our advisor counselor named Marcela Mendoza, which held 2 workshops last week at the Anaheim campus and the Wilshire Center. The club is there to empower students to complete their educational and academic goals and share information about NOCCCD and community resources as well. One of our student leaders also created another club, a Christian club, by Christine Nouns, and a lot of students were interested in it. So I was really excited. And then I did want to give a special shout out to yet another amazing woman, beautiful both inside and out. Dr. Vicky Calhoun. She is a Community Enrollment Services Officer. She also serves as the President of the Board of Trustees at Fullerton Joint Union High School District. Thank you especially to Dr. Cynthia Olivio and President Pertel for making this role possible. She comes to our school every Thursday and she helps students transition to Fullerton College. She tells them about services, resources, and things that are accessible to students. A lot of our students in our school do not know that transitioning to Fullerton College or Cypress College is really easy, and sometimes they get afraid of just hearing money, and she makes that very accessible to them. For example, last week we had a student who's graduating from high school diploma and happens to be an Emmy Award winning in music, and she's helping transitioning him from high school diploma to Fullerton College. She has such a great energy. When she comes to all of our classes and labs, she always goes, "College, anyone? College?" I really love her. And so thank you for making that possible to both of you. Upcoming events I do want to share is Building Trauma-Informed Communities, BTIC conference for short. It's coming up on Friday, April 11th from 8:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Knott's Hotel in Buena Park. This conference is hosted by our parenting program. It is for parents of all ages, as well as those supporting children like teachers and social workers. Attendees will hear about experts in healthcare, child development, psychology, and education. If you're interested or anyone you'd like to invite, please let them lead them to register to our website at www.nocce/parenting-events. And that concludes my student.
Thank you, President Brown. Just one item. This evening, I attended the Fullerton College men's basketball game on March 1st versus Southwestern. It was a pretty boring game for a while. I think we had a pretty comfortable lead, but at the end, things got a little scary. It was a 70-67 victory, so a W is a W, so we'll take it. I just wanted to thank President Olivo and also Vice Chancellor Williams and family, who was all there cheering on the Hornets. And also thank President Olivo for introducing Vancouver Clark, who was also there in attendance from the 1961 team. So it was a great time, great victory. So happy to be there, looking forward to more of those wins. So thank you, that concludes my report.
Conventions and results.
Good evening. I just want to also continue the conversation about the event for the foundation. There were so many students, and the reason why that I felt it was important to open up my house, it was really because of our students. I think, especially in times like this, our students really need our support as much as possible. And honestly, that was the easy part. I think all the work that has been happening behind the scenes is something to really praise a lot of people for. I want to say a special thank you to Shauna Fisher, Bailey Matsumoto, which are really doing a lot of the work behind the scenes, which is part of Janet Maharis' team. She's our interim executive director for Friends of Fullerton. I cannot say enough about all the work that they're really doing. I think, like I said, opening my home is the easy part. I think all the real work is happening by these amazing women. I want to highlight the students that volunteered. Anissa, Ariane, Kenneth, Callista, Susie, Isabel, Nolan, and Danny. If I missed any, my apologies, but honestly, they were amazing. They look like true professionals doing that again, helping out and just really having a good time. And it was just a very warm time. And I want to add to the list of attendees, Valentina, thank you for attending the dinner as well, and Henry Hua. So it was just a very warm evening, and really, all of you that attended really made my home a warm place. So just letting you all know that. I also want to continue by saying, a couple more things here. Thank you to Howard and Rachel, also for being from the Cypress College Foundation. Thank you for your support. I know you were representing Cypress College and just the collaborations. I just enjoy that. Future board members that will be coming, joining the board is Dr. Vicky Calhoun. This will be our board vice president, Dr. Anna Corral, board secretary, Dr. Joanne Brannock, and board director, and John Ayala will join our board. So I'm super excited, and I just want to say a special thank you for all the board members that have worked this past few years as well, that are now going on to great things. Just want to say thank you for all your dedication and hard work. So with that, I also want to say Feliz Dia de la Mujer, really dedicating that to my grandmother, my mother, my daughters, and my soon-to-come granddaughter. And it's just amazing women that are in our lives that really help us be where we are, mentors. I have had a lot of mentors, but the support that we have for one another is really special. So Feliz Dia de la Mujer. Thank you.
Yes, just 3 things. Number 1, I expect to see you all at Americana on Saturday. All looking good, it's fitting. Number 2, I have been involved in numerous different conversations through the League of California regarding how to join together in a response to all these information coming out of Washington. And I would like to just point you to a resource center on the League webpage that has just a whole bunch of different resources regarding information and response and how to do that. And I will say that the general consensus from legal opinion has been, at this point in time, to stay the course. So I just wanted to share that. And then thirdly, it has already been mentioned that Dulce Delgadillo was awarded the Rising Star Award. I did bring pamphlets or programs that I'd like to share with my colleagues regarding the event. I I didn't bring enough for everybody. I grabbed as many as I could. But anyways, I wanted to share it with you. It was a really fabulous day up at West Valley College in Saratoga, California. It was really special to have one of our own be a rising star. And I also want to thank Kai Stearns for her support at various points in helping to bring the whole day together. So thank you very much.
A little bit. Ryan Betts.
No comments today, thank you very much.
Okay. I just have one thing. The annual board evaluations were distributed today. I worked hard to get that out. Went to trustees, to chancellor staff, and to commissioner's table. I believe there's a 2-week deadline for that one. So I ask you please fill those out. They are anonymous, and we do absolutely look at the results and want to know your comments. So if you didn't get that, you should have let Kai know, but I suspect you probably got it everybody. So
You should let all of them know.
okay, let all of them know too. Let somebody know. Okay. Finally, public comments on non-agenda and closed session items. I have 3 yellow cards. We'll take them in the order that I received them. So that would be Antoinette Triefenbach, followed by Victor Amaya, followed by Bianca Stefani. Just remind you that you have 3 minutes. Board President Lopez will do the timing. Please direct your comments to the board and take it away.
Hello, Board of Trustees. My name is Antoinette Triefenbach. I am currently the Vice President of our Classified Senate at Fullerton College, the current site rep coordinator for CSEA, and a very proud administrative assistant too for our Natural Sciences Division. I have been with this district for almost 10 years and have seen many negotiation cycles, but this cycle has made me say enough. Our district is not bargaining in good faith for our IT community. The job study and MOU has been done for years now, but it's been held hostage by one thing: the district's desire to cut longevity for future hires. This isn't the first time the district has dangled a much-needed salary increase. Salary, I'll add, that has been promised to be raised to become competitive with surrounding districts, as long as we get rid of something that secures our position or makes this district desirable to work in to begin with. Once upon a time, we took care of each other. We don't anymore. But I had a small ray of random hope just a few weeks ago when the board approved the chancellor's raise. That moment was when Trustee Bent said, and I quote, "This raise is well deserved. We should be paying talent what they are worth." So tell me, are classifieds not talented enough, skilled enough, hardworking enough to gain respect at the bargaining table and paid what we are worth? A campus without a classified is a campus that doesn't move. Faculty wouldn't be able to teach, campuses wouldn't be maintained, technology would be lacking, bills wouldn't be paid, and most importantly, students wouldn't be supported. End this impasse that we have coming with our IT MOU by paying them what they have earned and take the elimination of longevity off the table. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Victor Amaya, and I am speaking tonight as a proud classified employee of this district. While I am not a member of the IT department, I stand in full support of my IT colleagues and all of us in CSEA 167 who are currently working without a contract. Let me be clear, this situation is unacceptable. Our classified staff, including those in IT, have shown unwavering commitment to the success of this district, keeping systems running, supporting students and staff, and ensuring that our schools operate smoothly every single day. Yet, despite their dedication, there continues to be a delay in ratifying the MOU with the IT department. While confidential and management employees have already received increases in wages and benefits, why are we being treated as second-class employees? I have worked for this district for almost 20 years, 8 of those years as a full-time employee. When I began my full-time employment with NOCCCD, I left a well-paying job at Whittier Union High School District, taking a loss of over $10,000 both in wages and benefits because I believed in the mission of this district and wanted to make a difference in a place that feels like home to me. When I started here, I was placed at the highest range available in my step. There is no monetary ladder for me to climb. Since then, the only increase to my pay has come from longevity and from cost of living adjustments. And now, I hear the district is threatening to take away longevity from my future colleagues in the IT department. This is not just unfair, it's insulting. Taking away longevity pay from a group of employees who will dedicate years of service to this district sends a clear message that loyalty and experience mean nothing. We are not asking for special treatment. We are asking for fairness, fair wages, fair benefits, fair recognition for the critical role classified staff play in the district's success. The district cannot function without the hard work of its classified employees, from IT to custodial, administrative, and beyond. The message being sent is that the work of classified staff is not valued. We are being told that despite our hard work and dedication, we are not worth the same consideration as others. That message is unacceptable. We have reached an impasse, a point that was avoidable if not for an egregious delayed response. We need a resolution, and we need it now. It is time for the district to show leadership and integrity, ratify the MOU, approve a fair contract. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the Board of Trustees. My name is Bianca Stopani. I'm a proud student of both Fullerton and Cypress College, and I stand before you on behalf of myself and other students who were not able to come forward at this time to address some issues that have come up. This was actually brought up to me by cafeteria staff regarding the food items over there at Fullerton College. Not enough healthy options such as fruits and veggies. We do have limited options when it comes to the $12 meal, so if budgeting allows, we would like to request that the district be able to implement more healthier food options for our students. At Cypress College, there's a prerequisite that requires dance performers such as myself to partake in a dance production class, which actually involves you submitting additional hours, and that can look like setting up lighting design, costume design, but the way that some students perceive it is a form of involuntary servitude or slavery because it is free labor. And if you're not a dance major, you still have to take this class in order to partake in a dance concert. There was a student that was trying to cause chaos in my club by trying to resist ICE and law enforcement if ICE were to come to our school. And when I brought this up to Student Life and Leadership, they honestly seem to turn a blind eye. So I'd like to ask that the district enforce policies regarding student conduct, because I did look at the policies and she was about to violate quite a few actually, 1.1, 1.6, 1.7, 1.15, and she is subject to disciplinary action such as being removed from the school as well. For student government, students have mentioned that the GPA requirement to run is a 2.0, and they'd like to ask if it can be decreased to 1.75 or 1.80 to allow students to be able to participate in running for candidacy. At the VRC at Cypress, some female students have approached me and mentioned that some male students who work at the front desk have antagonized them by actually partaking in what I see as petty behavior, microaggressions. So basically, if a female student walks by, they'll start snickering or making comments. And so what I would like to ask is that the district implements policies that could enforce some sort of student conduct where male students at the VRCs can actually respect the female students and be held accountable for their behavior. And definitely not allow this type of bullying behavior in these spaces that are supposed to be safe for us. So I definitely would like to ask that the district be able to help implement and foster a supportive environment for us students, particularly female students or other students as well. Staff have actually asked me to step before you to ask if Cypress College can be remodeled if the budgeting allows as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, those were all the yellow cards I got. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board at this point? All right, at that point, then we will adjourn the closed session for the reasons that are listed in the agenda in section 9. Remind you again about Americana this Saturday. If you're booked up, it should be a good time. Don't get wet on the way out. See you at the open session.
There will be a readout.
There will be a readout.